Hey guys, if you're not subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and hit that like button on the video. And if you don't have time to watch this episode right now, no problem, but I'd really appreciate it if you would save it to your watch later playlist. Finally, if you'd like to follow me on Instagram and X, those links are in my description below. Thank you. What were you doing at Abbey Road?
I was visiting, and it was a fascinating tour.
You were touring the whole studio and
I
everything?
was on a trip with Peter Diamandis, his XPrize. He goes on these adventure trips. So we went to England, and we toured Oxford and Cambridge and London. And part of the tour was the Abbey Road studios. And it is a fascinating place, steeped in history.
Oh, yeah.
Incredible electronics, and they told the stories when the Beatles did this and the Beatles did that, and this performer, that performer. We were there for a couple of hours. It was just fabulous. I loved it.
Did you feel anything when you were in there, like the artistry coming off the walls around you at all?
It's interesting that you should say that, because now that you say it, yes. You know, at the time I thought, something really magical about this place. But, excuse me, you got a lot of the sense of the history and the feeling and the excitement. Particularly, we had a great tour guide. If you've got a good tour guide, it makes so much difference. And they toured these through the different studios, and they told us the history of this. And they actually created music with these massive tables, what do they call these things, these big things where they...
The boards?
Yeah.
The mixer boards?
The mixer boards, yeah. They have these giant
I got a little
boards.
one right here.
Yeah, well, that's the baby one. So,
He's like, that.
yeah, anyhow, they actually made some music while we were there. They had a band in the back there. We were treated really nicely there. It was wonderful.
So you do adventure trips with Peter, how do you say his last name?
Peter Diamandis.
Diamandis.
Yeah, he's the founder of XPrize, also A360, but that's another organization. But
Yes.
XPrize is where he creates these fabulous prizes for all kinds of different things. And then if you're a big enough contributor, which I am, I pay him a lot of money, you go on these adventure trips each year. And last year we went to Panama. This year we went to England, and these tours, and you get to know what's happening in technology and so forth. But this XPrize is really fantastic. He wants to solve a massive problem in the world, like longevity. How he can help people live.
XPrize, you're saying?
XPrize.
Okay.
X as in, X as in X.
The letter.
As in Elon Musk.
Right.
Space X.
Right.
Yeah.
Which
so
we
X.
still call Twitter, He's calling it X. I still call it Twitter.
You do. Anyhow, so he has this XPrize fund longevity. He wants to reverse aging or hold aging for another 10 or 20 years. And he has teams all over the world working on this right now. So they're competing for $101 million. So
That's
if you
a nice
come up
little
with
prize.
something where you can hold aging, and there's a lot of people working on this stuff all over the world. I think he's got 150 teams working on it. And the one that comes forward, and he's got it very well measured. So you've got to meet these metrics. If you meet these metrics, you get $101 million.
What kind of metrics? I mean, other than we want people to live to this average age or something, like how do they measure that?
He has body systems like the nervous system, the musculature, and these things. I know you'd have to be a doctor to figure out, but he has them specifically identified. And you have to demonstrate that you're holding aging 10, 15 years, 20 years. And putting it all together, you can live an extra 10, 20 years, which is what the big thing today. I'm on that program. I plan to live until I'm 120.
Oh, you've already planned it out.
Oh, yeah, I got that. Yeah.
You got it down to like the day on a calendar?
I know what I got to do.
What do you got to do?
It's pretty simple, straightforward. You know what the best thing you can do?
What's
and
that?
you know it already. Everybody knows it. Is taking care of your health.
100%.
You're going to die.
Yeah.
And how do you take care of your health? It's the simplest thing in the world. You exercise. That's the magic that's the magic drug. And it's not just one kind of exercise. It's cardio and muscles and stretching. And I do that all the time.
You look like you lift. You built.
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
Yeah, she'll tell you I have muscles. So I'm sitting here with Julie, just so you know. Hey, Julie, say hi to
We have
your family
Julian
back home.
over there in studio. We got Lauren in studio as well. We got a packed studio today. I like it.
Yeah, we got a crowd here, got an audience. So yeah, I'm doing that. That's one thing. You got to do what it takes if you want to maintain your health. The other thing you need to do is to sleep.
Oh, yeah.
Get in 7 or 8 hours. For years and years, I lived on 4 hours a night. bad, bad, bad thing to do that. So now I work to get 7 hours every night. And the other thing, don't eat crap. Don't eat garbage. Don't drink stuff, bad stuff. Don't take drugs. And you got a chance to live to 120. Now, I've asked my doctors if they put it in writing, but they won't guarantee it.
Yeah, it's not. Products don't come with guarantee, but
no guarantee.
But everything you're saying, like at a high level, it's really common sense. But most of us, we get stuck in the day-to-day part of life, and a lot of people won't focus on those things. I had some health problems while I was building this podcast, and I'd always been a gym 6 days a week guy, eating well, intermittent faster, the whole bit. Stayed an intermittent faster, but everything else went to. And it is unbelievable what happened to my body before I started getting treatment, like how bad it got. And then once I turned back on to my, I'm in the gym every morning at 6:48 a.m. We're getting this 90 to 100 minutes in and getting back in shape and eating square meals with natural stuff. It is crazy how much my brain, performance, body function, everything just went through the roof again.
And you feel better and you're happier, right?
Oh my God, leaps and bounds.
That's one of the if there's a secret to happiness, it's not so much a big secret, it's obvious. Maintain your health.
Yeah.
And it's easy to do.
Yeah.
Well, it's not easy, but you got to do it.
You said you were sleeping for like 4 hours a night though for a lot of years. Was that like just because you thought hustle culture was you'll sleep when you're dead, or what was the thought process there?
Just that. Stupid. I got things to do. I'm busy. Got to run the business. So, it's this bad habit.
Well, it's great to have a chance to talk with you in here because we'll get into this today, but you wrote a book recently called The Happiness Experiment. And I was telling you, a lot of people who write about the philosophy of happiness and things like that, not many of them are billionaires. So it's nice to have another spin on it from a guy who's one of the Illuminati running the world, if you will.
Okay.
So we'll get into that whole background and everything. But, has anyone ever told you have a very unique accent?
Yeah, sort of. So people come, they say, where are you from? Which is what they're saying. Why do you speak so weird,
It's not weird. It's unique. There's a difference.
Well, I was born, raised, went to school in England. So I've got the, English accent.
But it's kind of gone.
I know, but then I spent 5 years in Australia. So, good day, mate. Bloody fair dinkum. What?
Right. Let's stay with what you had.
Yeah,
that was better.
so I was in Australia, and now I've been in America for over 50 years. So I'm a combination of English, Australian, and American.
How old were you when you left England?
I left England when I was 18. And went to Australia.
For 5 years.
There's a story there. Went there 5 years, came to the United States, been here for quite a while, planning to stay if they'll let me. I'm a legal alien.
Right now you can stay, apparently. Just looking at your donation history, right now you're good.
I'm good, okay.
We'll check with you in 28.
I pay a lot of taxes.
That's right.
Yeah, so I'm good to keep.
Yeah, I heard there's pretty high levels out there in California.
Pretty high, about 60%.
Yeah, but you stay.
And I'd like to increase it, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So growing up in England, though, what was your life like? What was your family like? Were your parents in business? Because obviously, like, you have this insane passion for building things. So where did that come from?
Well, England was pretty tough when I was a kid. When I was a child in England, it was right after the war. England had been devastated, physically devastated, emotionally, economically. It was in ruins. I mean, it was really tough after the war. You say England won the war, except the Americans say they did.
I always say we all did. I mean,
That's the more honest statement. Yeah, it couldn't have done it without America, and America couldn't have done it without there. So, excuse me. So, you say we won the war. No, we didn't. And somebody said, there's a movie that says, nobody wins a fight. And nobody wins a war. Some people lose less. That's what it amounts to. And England had lost everything.
Yeah.
I mean, the place was in rubble. Everybody knew somebody that had, they lost a son, a daughter, a father, somebody, a house that had gone. It was pretty big. So I was raised in those bleak times. Now, I didn't know about that. I thought, well, that's life, Yeah. And there was a struggle to endure, to survive, to rebuild, to get life back again. And I contrast that with the American spirit. The Americans say life is to be enjoyed. It's great, looking for opportunities. But in England at that time, we were solving problems. And that's what we had to do. We had to rebuild. So that was my childhood. And I went to school there, pretty good student. I was, top of the class, pretty smart.
Top of the class. I mean, that's
But
pretty
it
damn
was,
good.
it wasn't Oxford or Cambridge University, but, it was an education. I was a pretty smart kid, I suppose.
Did your parents really push you in school, or was that from within?
No, I had 5 siblings. There were 6 of us.
Oh, wow.
And my parents really didn't have very much time for that. I mean, they were concerned with surviving and living and making money. We were poor, not dirt poor, but we didn't have a lot of money. So they worked and struggled. But at that time, you Americans, you take things for granted. That's the problem.
We do.
That's
Yeah.
the problem. You guys don't know how good you've had it.
I agree.
You should have gone through England in the 1940s. Mm-hmm. Everything was struggle. Everything was serious. You didn't have time for victims because everybody was a victim. You couldn't be a victim in England because you'd just be one of them, and nobody played on that. They just toughened you up, and you realized that you needed a job to get done, and you did your job, and you worked, and you did it. So that was my upbringing. Now, I never experienced any great joy or love in my life at that time, but I didn't know the difference. So I just got along, went to school, and then after a while, I decided I would wander around the world.
So there wasn't. Did you have dreams though? Like, did you have things you're like, I want to do that, even if it wasn't completely specific, but like a ballpark area?
Well, a real dream, as a formulated dream, occurred when I was 17. You want to hear that story?
That's why you're here, Carl.
Oh, that's why I'm here. Why didn't you tell me? Okay. So I was 17 years old, and I read in the newspaper that 2 guys, Roger Holden and Michael Black, somebody like that, were planning to drive a car from London to Australia. From London to Australia. And they were looking for 2 others to go with them. So that night in the cafe with my friends, I said, hey guys, there's these 2 guys, they're planning to drive a car to Australia. Isn't that exciting? I thought this was really cool. And they said, what? They're not going to be able to do that. There's no roads, there's no gas. And what about if the car breaks down? Well, I argued for about half an hour with them, and I said, it's possible. And they said, no, it'll never work. The car will break down, you'll die. It's going to be horrible. And I said, no, we're going to be able to do it. And then after half an hour, I lost the argument.
You lost the argument?
I lost the argument. And so I said, I'm going to call them, and I'm going to go with them. That was sort of obstinacy. I'm an obstinate guy sometimes. So I called them, and I went down and visited with them and said, hey, I'd like to come. And they said, cool. And they invited me, and they got another. So it was 4 of us. We sent 4 kids.
Oh, 17. You went?
Well,
you literally went?
Well, there's more to the story.
Yeah.
So it didn't happen that way, but I did go. That's how I got to Australia. I told you I was in Australia for 5 years. That's
I know. I didn't
there.
know you drove to Australia from England. I mean, my God.
I didn't drive. I walked, hitchhiked, backpacked. I did so too. I believe it.
I mean, you're in shape, but that would be excessive.
Then I was a lot better shape. Okay. Anyhow, so I met with these guys and learned fabulous lessons. We every weekend we got maps. There was no internet, no phones there. Nobody had phones even in their homes. Can you imagine that? No phones in any home. So very few people had phones and maps and no internet. So we got maps, and we didn't even know what a passport was. A visa, what's a visa?
How do you even do this?
I don't know. It's like we asked people, and we called people, and we went to the library, and we got maps, and went to the bookstore and bought maps, and we pored over the maps, and every weekend we figured out all these things, asked all these kind of questions, and then we made a plan, and we were all going to go to Australia. But you want to hear the rest of the story?
Yeah.
Paul Harvey? Yeah. The rest of the story. We're getting ready to go, right? We've done all of this work for months and months and months. We're ready to go. By this time, I think I'm 18. Started when I was 17, now I'm 18. And one of the guys said, look, guys, he said, I'm awful sorry. My mother's ill. She's poorly, as they say in English. She's poorly, she's ill, and I just can't leave her. So I'm sorry, I can't come. I'm not coming. Then another guy looked across, and he said, well, since you brought it up, I've got to tell you, my girlfriend and I, we've got serious. We're getting married, so I can't come either. And then the other guy looked at me and he says, well, Carl, 2 of us, that's not enough, so it's off.
Oh, I would have been so pissed.
I was crushed. I was disappointed. I wasn't pissed. It was like, there's nothing to get mad at. It's like it is a hammer. So my heart, just splattered all over the floor. And I said, this is really awful. My dream to go to Australia, all of this planning. You talk about a dream. I mean, it was not only a dream, but it was being fleshed out. It was, the map, the countries that we were going to go through and all of that.
You were seeing it before
I was
seeing
it before. Yeah. And the dream was totally wiped out. I was crushed.
But you still ended up in Australia.
Oh, that's the rest of the story.
Okay.
So I sat there. I don't know for how long. It seemed like I sat there for 5 minutes, just with the eyes closed, with a sinking feeling, sad. It was mostly sadness and something like that. And I just sat there shaking my head, and I said, well, I looked up and I said, well, I'll go by myself. And they said, what do you mean? I said, I'll go by myself. They said, well, you can't do that. How are you going to do that? You can't drive a car. I said, I'll walk.
Oh, you didn't have a license even?
Well, no, at that time, we didn't got to that point. It wasn't a matter of a license. There was nobody was going to come, and I wasn't going to drive the car. I wasn't going to try to do it alone. I said, well, I'll walk. And they said, well, how are you going to walk? I said, well, I'll backpack, I'll hitchhike, I'll do whatever I have to do, but I'm going to Australia. And they said, well, good luck to you. And
what did your parents think of all this?
I didn't ask them, didn't tell them about it.
You didn't tell them about any of the planning?
No,
nothing. You were just going to do it?
I told them the day I was leaving, I said, I'm off. Where are you going, son? I said, I'm going to Australia. Oh, good luck. Good luck. I got all my stuff. This is England in 1940s, 1950s by now. They didn't care about that stuff.
You didn't tell any of your siblings either?
No.
You just left everyone in the dark?
I just did my thing. They were doing their thing. That's how it was in England at that time. We're not a very close family. So then I went off and I started planning. I'd already done a lot. I got a passport, got some visas and stuff and all that. And so I went off to Australia overland.
Go ahead.
Went through France, down France, crossed to Italy, Yugoslavia, Bulgaria, Turkey, cross Turkey to Iran, cross Iran down to Pakistan, India. You're getting a geography lesson here.
Yeah. I can see it.
Yeah, right. And then down to the south of India, cross to Ceylon, which is now called Sri Lanka. And then I took a ship from Sri Lanka to Perth, Australia, and ended up in Australia for 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long did that take all in?
About 5 months, 5 or 6 months. And it cost me, I had 89 pounds when I started, 89 English pounds, which is about $120 at that point, which was a lot of money in those days. I mean, it doesn't sound much. And it wasn't that much.
For 5 months of travel, though, you would think, obviously it's a lot more back then, but you would think that's not enough.
It wasn't enough because I ran out of money when I got to Ceylon.
Yeah.
So I was stranded there.
You were stranded alone at age 18 in a foreign place. What's that like?
Fun. It was interesting.
It's not the word I was thinking of.
People. People are so generous, so kind. It's unbelievable. And when in Asia, as a kid of 18, and friendly, and people were friendly back. They were kind. They'd let me stay at their home. They'd take me out and feed me. They'd do all kinds of things, They're just a very, very generous and kind in India. I love India. It's a great country. And so Ceylon, which is, sort of in India, right off the tip of India. And, it was good. It's great.
It's not like you can call in like an Apple Pay or something back then when you run out of money. I'm just thinking about how lost you are.
Apple Pay, yeah.
That's nuts. But it's interesting to me that you say like your family wasn't close. It's rare I hear something like that when there's like 6 siblings or something. I've heard that with, one sibling or whatever. Parents might have been out working. But why do you think that was? Do you guys just kind of all did your own thing?
Yeah, my parents were busy. They were doing their things.
What did they do?
My dad was an entrepreneur, and mother supported the family, and she supported him doing an entrepreneur. He opened up a gas station. He had a car rental company and a hotel and a motel. He did a little of this, made some money, spent it all, and my mother had put some money away, so he had some money to start a new business. So he was an entrepreneur. He had a nightclub.
Oh, he had a nightclub too.
Yeah, he managed a nightclub, created a nightclub. Yeah, so he was an entrepreneur kind of guy, and I guess some of that rubbed off on me. self-reliance, dream about something, think about it, plan, and get it done. It's a simple formula.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest lessons I learned, Julian. When I was 17, I learned about planning, asking questions, thinking. What do we do here? How do we do that? What if the car breaks down? What supplies will we need? What if somebody gets sick? How are we going to get from here to there? Right. What about this? What about that? We knew nothing. We were just kids. And, of course, you had to go to library, bookstores, and ask people about stuff, and we found all those things. But what I learned out was the thinking process, asking questions, finding answers, another question, finding an answer, another question, getting an answer. So that was the thinking part of it. And then planning, okay, so this is what I'm going to do first. Then we'll do this. And if this happens, we'll do that. So it was a natural process that I learned at 17 that's lasted me for the rest of my life, because thinking and planning is the secret of success, the secret of happiness.
I think there's also the second layer to this is that clearly you have the most obvious point I could ever make here, but you have an adventure gene in you. You have something that says, I want to go do something special. And that's where like some of that happiness you've been chasing in your life and getting to seems to come from that. You think that's fair to say? I
think that's fair to say. Curiosity, wanting to find out. I wanted to know stuff. I wanted to see the world, wanted to find out. I think curiosity was a basic, and I think that's the basis of when you're going to be go on adventures and travel. You want to know about other countries, know about other peoples. And so, yeah, that was there. Yeah. I didn't articulate, but the biggest thing I wanted to do was find out about me.
Find yourself.
Find myself. What I wanted to do with my life, because I was a confused teenager. Pretty dumb, I think so. When I look back, I think I was pretty stupid, clueless. So, I'm trying to figure things out. I wanted to figure out what I want to do with my life. I wanted to figure out me. I wanted to figure out other people. All those questions that teenagers ask. So I had those questions. I thought traveling would help me do that.
Obviously, India was a place that really rubbed off on you. But, over this 5 months, are you spending, I imagine, a couple weeks at a time, basically, just doing math in each country there? Or?
No, some countries I went through pretty fast, like in Bulgaria, which was totally totalitarian, communist, oppressive. I mean, we were traveling through Bulgaria. We couldn't wait to get out. We were hitchhiking totally, or walking, or hitchhiking. Every few miles, these soldiers would come out from each side of the road, stop the car, and search us and search the car. They'd let us go, and another, few dozen miles up the road, the same thing would happen. Yeah. But it was dark and oppressive. And when we'd ask someone, because every night we had a different place, we'd have to speak to somebody and say, is there a youth hostel? That was the first thing. If there wasn't a youth hostel, we're looking for some place to stay. Some people invited us to come home with them, but not in Bulgaria. Now, in Bulgaria, when they were talking to you, they were constantly looking over their shoulder, because talking to a foreigner, that could be a death sentence. So a very creepy country, very creepy. So Bulgaria, we highlighted, we went right through there fast. But some countries like Turkey, loved Turkey. When we got between
about Turkey? Yeah.
Well, we left Bulgaria, and we're going through into the Turkish customs. One was oppressive, resentful, nasty, and when we got through to the customs in Turkey, it was like party time. They say, "Hey guys, where you from? Where you going? What are you doing? What's going on?" In Turkey.
I just had a dude sitting there, my buddy Eric. He's been banned from Turkey twice.
Yeah, now. But this is 1950. This is 1959, almost 1960. And Turkey was still under the Shah.
Right.
No, that's Iran, pardon me. But it was still pretty open. And the Turks were really friendly. We had a wonderful time in Turkey. But you're right. In some places, I stayed like 6 weeks in India. Loved India. The Indians were very, very gracious, very hospitable. And so I stayed there for a while.
But when it's also a huge country. So when you're staying there and you say you're there for 6 weeks, you're constantly moving across the country, obviously.
Yeah, constantly moving. Right. But like I stayed probably 3 or 4 weeks in Calcutta. I had a wonderful time in Calcutta. Pretty sad place. Very, very poor. Millions of people living on the streets.
What year are we in? Like
1960 now, because I was
you
in.
were 18 in 1960?
Yeah.
How?
Shh, don't do the calculations.
You're like 83?
No, you're
looking great.
You're not going to put that on air.
That's a huge compliment.
I'm 53. Everybody, that's a lie.
Bro, I thought you were like 65. That's impressive.
Yeah,
wow.
well, all right, you're forgiven. 65. Yeah.
Yeah, you're looking good. All right.
Thanks, dude.
All right, so
You look pretty good too.
Thank
you. That working out is working on
Thank you. Yeah, I'm 15. But Calcutta, very, very poor place. This is, for a lot of people out there, it's ringing a bell. This is where like Mother Teresa was from, Mother Teresa of Calcutta, and she was obviously spending her life serving the poor. But you know what? I would imagine that had a pretty profound effect on you to see the depths of what human sorrow can look like.
Well, you know, it was just something I was absorbing. There was millions of people literally living on the sidewalk. I mean, that's everything they had. They had these, tin cups and pots and some sort of blankets if they had anything. That was it. That's where they lived, on the streets begging. And also there were certain parts of there where there were simply dead people lying in the street. We were adventurous. I was adventurous. I walked around places and walked down this one street and lo and behold, there was a couple of dead people laying on the street, just there, just lying there with flies on them. Nobody seemed to be very concerned about it. It was a hard time. 1960, Calcutta was terribly, terribly poor. Or actually, there was a lot of very rich people and a lot of desperately poor people.
Wealth gap, if you will.
Oh, huge gap. Yeah.
You hadn't seen any. I mean, obviously, there was nothing like that in England. You mentioned you grew up in the post-war years, so it's like everything had to be rebuilt. There was some desolation for sure, but it's not like you had that up close, up front view on death all the time. You kind of missed that with the war, right?
Yeah, I missed it. I was too young to know about that, thankfully. But in India, I got to see poverty. Poverty. I mean, Americans don't know what poverty is.
Compared to that. Yeah.
Compared to that. I mean, this is totally abject. How much income? Zero. How much food? Zero. Where's the next meal coming from? No idea. And it was begging. They lived by begging, or the generosity of some charity. It was and they just lived on the streets. Millions of people. This is not a few. San Francisco. You hear about the poverty in New York, and the homelessness in New York and San Francisco, which is still devastating. I don't want to minimize that because it's very serious. If somebody loses that, but compared to this, literally millions of people lying. Now it's not the case anymore. I understand, and I haven't been back there for a while.
But that's got to be. I mean, you're 18 years old. It's got to be pretty traumatic to witness that, especially when you're witnessing it across a lot of children, too. There's something about that, not to downplay when you see it with adults, but it's on a whole nother level when you see kids starving.
Yeah, I agree. It gets to you. But fortunately, things have improved enormously. Now, that's a long time ago, 1960, what's that, 80 years ago? Almost 70 years ago.
65. Yeah.
65.
You're dating yourself.
Yeah. You're getting better at arithmetic than I am. So that's 65. Yeah, it's a long time ago. India now is a whole different country. For a start, they've doubled their population.
Yeah.
In that 65 years, and so the poverty is still there, but it's nowhere near as bad as that.
Yeah, there's a lot of tech going on there and more first world type things now too, which has created opportunities. A lot of spam calls as well. Yeah. I don't know if you get those, but
call centers and coders.
That's right.
They put India on the map.
That's right.
They're very smart people, the Indians,
Oh, yeah.
Very smart people. Yeah.
I don't know any dumb Indians. Everyone I've dealt with, they're up there on the IQ scale. Yeah.
They had a very good schooling system there. Interestingly enough, a lot of it was introduced by the British. When they took over India, they established great schools.
All right, so that's one thing that's a nice little roll off of Britain, because I know that's like a sore subject, because Britain ruled over them for a long time.
They did, and that wasn't nice. That wasn't cool. That wasn't nice. But they did leave some bad. The railroads, roads, and schools. They put those into India, and they still benefit from those things.
Wasn't Churchill like really pissed that they gave up India?
He was.
Yeah, that was like his project or something.
He loved India. He wanted to keep it, and he was behind the times.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't work.
Nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect, but
No.
I know that was a sore subject for him. But so you do this, you end up in Australia at 18. Now you've left your life behind, but when you get there, had the plan initially been like, all right, I'll get to Australia and then fly home or something? Or what was the deal?
Well, the next deal is, okay, live in Australia and learn about Australia and go to the next step. And so when I arrived in Australia, I was totally broke, which, if you're broke, what I thought, well, I got to make some money. So if I'm going to eat, I have to get money. And if I have to get money, I have to work. And it was that simple. That was the simple equation. There was no welfare, no government benefits, no handouts, no charities. It didn't even occur to me. And I met a friend there who met me when I got off the boat. And I said, I need a job. He said, there are no jobs in Perth, Australia. I said, what do you mean? He said, I've been down by the employment office every day. They've got nothing there. And I said, well, let's go back there and tell them we're desperate. We got to get some money. Otherwise, we don't have anything to eat.
So Australia was on hard times then?
No, just full employment. There was no jobs. Everybody was working. They didn't have any spare. There was no employment for us. And so they said, well, if you really want a job, I said, we've got to have a job. Otherwise, we're not going to eat. And then they said, well, there's this guy, he's got a farm, several hundred miles in the Outback, that if you're looking for that, he wants somebody out there to clear, cut down trees and clear land. I said, we'll take it, whatever is there. So we got on, they gave us some train tickets, and we took off to the middle of the Outback and got off the train. The farmer was there, took us home, and crabby old guy. Boy, he was a mean guy. He didn't like us at all, and we certainly didn't like him.
Was it because you were British, you think?
I think part of it, yeah. Yeah, we were what they call palmers. They don't like English people.
Right.
They don't like. Well, they do, but they pretend not to.
Yeah, I've heard they don't.
Yeah, that's right. So anyhow, he said, all right, come on here. He said, make yourself at home in the barn. The barn's over there. See you tomorrow. So we slept in the barn that night. And we never thought much of it. Said, well, that's the way it's done around here. So we did that.
What was he paying you an hour?
Oh, I don't know, probably about 50 cents. I don't know. I have no idea. Back then, are you kidding me? I mean,
not a lot, though.
Not a lot. It was enough to get some money for food and to the next step.
Right.
And so we worked there for a couple of months, made some money, and then took off to other parts.
It takes a lot of discipline, though, doing hard labor job like that all day for very little money, living in a place you're not from, not used to. You're an outsider. You're just going with the flow.
It was just that was how it was. It wasn't, didn't know anything different. That was the life. That's what you did. If you wanted to eat, you had to get some money. If you had to get some money, just like I said. Right. And if the work required that's what you simply did. And it didn't occur to me to do anything else.
Right. Now, what'd you do after that? Because you were there another 4.5, 5 years.
Went to Australia. I went to Melbourne, lived in Melbourne for a while, traveled from Melbourne, went up to Sydney, worked up in Queensland for a while, did some sales job there, and then decided in 1964 that America was on my sights because my sister married an American. And so in England, my sister was dating this American guy, an Air Force guy. And so I got to meet Americans and talk to them. And I liked them.
So did she come visit you in Australia, or did you go home to visit them?
Before I left, I'm going to rewind, okay?
Yeah,
I'm living in England. I'm 17 years old. My sister's dating an American guy.
Oh, it was before.
Ray Wingo. Yeah, before I left.
So you chose Australia over us, and you already knew what the deal was.
Yeah, you came in second, but I changed my mind after a while. I said, Australia, well, America, let's get it.
Well, you and the Beatles had to invade in 64. I understand.
That's right. It was 64. It's the Beatles.
Yeah, so you were just trying to ride their coattails.
So they came over to see me. That's right. That's why they came here. That's right, because they knew I was here.
They knew you were coming.
That's probably coming. So I'd always liked America and Americans. I love the American movies. I like the spirit of America, big and ambitious. I like that. There was a lot of energy in America I detected. So I liked that. And so I decided I would come on over here, and I saved money. I worked day and night. You know what was always my solution? work. Excuse me. If I wanted to do something, I come to America, and I need to save enough money to pay for a ship to get over there and have a few dollars in my pocket when I arrived. You just go to work, and then you work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, and then you get the money and you save it as fast as you can, and then off you go. And that's what I did. And so I came off to, I got a ship from Sydney, Australia, to via Tahiti. Love Tahiti. Beautiful country.
Tahiti.
Tahiti.
I don't think I've ever talked to someone who's been there.
Oh, it's just delightful. South Sea Island, just gorgeous. You've been to Bora Bora?
Nope.
Oh, Bora Bora is lovely. Oh, they are just idyllic.
I've heard good things.
Just lovely. Yeah, just lovely. So I slept there, then went to Panama, and then got a ship from Panama, where the canal is.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
You
yeah.
have to ask Americans if they know about Panama and Panama
Oh,
Canal.
I know
because,
about that canal.
They don't teach that
A
stuff
lot of
in
drug
school.
money went into that stuff.
That's right. Oh, yeah. So that's the same Panama.
Are you into Panama Papers?
Maybe.
I don't like that pause. I didn't like that pause. You had to think about that.
But you caused me to pause. I never paused before. I know I'm pausing on that. Oh, dear. Panama Papers. So then I flew up to Miami, got off the plane in Miami. I had about $100 in my pocket.
In Miami, that's not nearly
Miami.
enough.
Oh, but in those days, this is 64, that was like having $500 in your pocket. I was rich. I had loads of money.
In Miami?
Yeah. So I just got on a Greyhound bus in Miami and drove immediately to Tennessee where my sister and her husband was. My sister, Ray Wingo, the Air Force guy that I told you about, they got married. And so they're living now in Tennessee, in Cleveland, Tennessee, little town in Cleveland, Tennessee, 30,000 people.
Cleveland, Tennessee.
Cleveland, Tennessee, about an hour from Chattanooga, Tennessee. Loved it. Loved Tennessee.
What'd you think of America when you put 2 feet on the ground in Miami?
Oh, Miami, I did not get anything but except assaulted by like 300% humidity. It was hot and totally oppressive. And so that's all I know about that and the airport. And then I got on the Greyhound bus.
That's for the best.
So the next thing is I'm in Cleveland, Tennessee, and I love I love the Tennesseans. Very calm, easy kind of life. Loved it there. Got a minimum wage job. I needed to get a job. So
What kind of job?
it was mapping, drawing.
Mapping?
Yeah, drawing maps of parcels of land and so on. For just drawing.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, it was nothing. It was
No,
just
it's kind of cool. I mean, we have Google now, so that's an old school job.
Yeah. What is it? Google? No, it's very old school.
Yeah, you had to do it yourself.
Nowadays, you just punch it into AI and they do the whole
right.
country for you.
Look at you. You've lived like the whole gamut at this point. You were there when they invented the wheel, and now you're using AI to do colleges.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
I love
very
that.
cool.
Yeah, come a long way.
Yes.
Lived a long time.
Hey guys, if you haven't already subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. It's a huge, huge help. Thank you.
Now, did you find yourself at this point? You had said, like, when you were setting out, you kind of wanted to find yourself in doing that initial trip. But you do that, you go 5 months across the world, quite literally. You get to Australia, you figure it out for 5 years, you dabble in a lot of different things to try to figure out what you want to do with your life, and then you end up in America. Like, were you at a point where you're like, you know what, now it's starting to formulate. Here's what I want to do.
Yes and no. I was getting smarter, learned some things, but I actually didn't really figure out what I was going to do with my life until sort of mid-age, quite a few years later. And then I went through a process, a soul-searching process. And that you've asked on, you asked me about what was a very impactful turning point in my life, and that was me figuring out what I wanted to do with my life when I grew up. I'm 39 years old, and now I've got to the point where I say, hey, it's time I figured it out, and I did figure it out. But it's not easy to figure out what you want to do with your life. Now, some people, it's really easy. They always want to be in the theater, or they want to write, or they want to be a doctor, or a lawyer, or a podcaster. And say, I got to just be like Julian. He's so cool. I want to be him. And that happens, to a lot of kids today. They all want to be like you, obviously. But, if you don't figure that out, a lot of people say, they die without knowing what they want to do with their life.
Yes.
That is really sad. you know, and they think opportunities and dreams that never happen. But I was fortunate because I learned how to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I figured out how you did determine a central purpose.
But between 23 and 39, what's the road like to get to that? I mean, that's a long time.
Well, I did a lot of things. And by the time I was in my late 20s, I'd gotten involved in real estate.
Smart man.
And that's how I...
Smart man.
Well, yeah, I guess it was a smart move. It was just a move, you know, that's the thing to do. That's where you make money. And I decided I wanted to make some money by that point. And so I got in real estate. But I didn't like it. I was making money. I'd made some money and I did good at it. And I thought, this is not really satisfying. This is not, I'm going to use a big word here. It wasn't soul satisfying.
Soul satisfying.
Soul, S-O-U-L.
I like that.
Yeah, soul satisfying. I like that. It's a nice phrase. I just made that up right now.
Yeah.
You inspired me to come up with that. Soul
That's what happens.
satisfying.
You come to New Jersey, we inspire people.
Yeah, satisfying my soul. So I needed to find a purpose that would satisfy my soul.
So you care, if I'm understanding this correctly, you also, like there's people who go out there and they're smart and however they can do it, they do it. However they make money and pay the bills, they don't care what that is. Just if they have a talent and can do it, they do it. And then there's people who are like, obviously you want to find something you're good at and you want to be smart and know what you're doing, but they care about how they make money and what they're doing to make that. Would you say you were getting yourself to the point where you're like, listen, I might be good at real estate. I might be good at this, that, or the third, but I really want to make money doing this because that's going to soul satisfy me.
But I didn't phrase it like that. It didn't matter what I was good at. You know, I was good at some things. I'd learned some lessons. I'd gotten pretty good at some things. And it didn't happen that way. And it wasn't about money anymore because I'd made money in real estate, but I didn't like it. I wasn't enjoying it. So I said, what do I really want to do that I love to do, that I'm fascinated by? How do I work out there's something that reaches me inside my soul? I'm sorry about that.
No, it's great. I love that.
Yeah, I like it too. But anyhow, so I wanted to figure that out, something that was meaningful, and then it was cool to make money at it. See, I have this belief, Julian, making money is great. Having lots of money is terrific. I mean, I know, because I have a lot of money, and I love it. I mean, it's great, but it's not the thing. It isn't the thing. Find something you love to do. Find something that fascinates you. Find something that gets you out of bed every morning. That's the critical thing. Whether it's teaching or writing or being in the theater or being a podcast, whatever it is that energizes you inside. Say, I love this. I want to do this. And then, how much money can I make at it? But the money comes second to it. You know, it's what you do, what you love to do, because whether you're going to make a lot of money or not. If you make a lot of money, fine. Some people don't care about a lot of money. They want to write novels. You know, they want to research. They want to educate. You know, they're not interested in money. And that's okay. As long as they've got enough money to feed their family and feed themselves, that's cool. And there's nothing wrong with that. Now, if you're Elon Musk and you want to fly to Mars, you're going to need billions of dollars.
Right.
But that's a lesson I learned. When I'd first made my money, I said, well, I'm making money. How much do I need? And I didn't answer that question. Then I had more money. And I said, you know, how much money is enough money? And I finally came up to an answer for that. The question is, what kind of life do you want to live? Do you want to live a lavish life, you know, fly to the stars, or do you want to just live a simple life with your family? You want to write books, you want to do something simple, you want to teach school or whatever it is. Whatever it is you need, whatever those values are, if you've got enough money to feed those values, to feed what you want to do, then that's enough. And that can be you're going to be thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, or millions.
I think people sometimes, and this isn't your fault at all, but when they hear someone like you talk who does have a lot of money, right? Like you're in the 1%, the 1%, the 1%. They'll cynically be like, yeah, they'll tell you to do what you love, but their life was, meaning a guy like you, your life was about where you ended up making a lot of money. So it's easy for you to say from your perch, or so to speak, like, oh, you don't need to be happy to have money. And I actually do agree with that. I don't think money buys happiness. And I think I could demonstrate that in many examples of people I saw in my previous career on Wall Street. That said, it can certainly help. And so if someone maybe wants to be like, think about it, a public job, like a firefighter or something, the fact of the matter is, if that's what really excites them, they're great at it. They're doing one of the most important things, which is saving people's lives. The reality is that their money's, especially if they have a family of a few kids, and you got to pay for college and stuff these days, money's always going to be tight. And there may be a kid out there listening right now who's now 17, and when he was younger, he dreamed of being a firefighter. But now he's like, you know what? As much as I want to do that, I feel like I can't because I'm not going to have enough to stay ahead. So what do you say to someone like that when there are like really respectable professions that maybe are never going to make you financially special or financially really ahead of the curve?
Well, there's a challenge, and having enough money, whatever that is critical. I mean, you've got to do that. You've got to feed yourself, feed your family, pursue those things that are meaningful to your home, transportation, those kind of things, entertainment, and pleasure. And the only solution I've ever found is you've got to work. You get a better job, you get another job, you get a second job, you do whatever you need to do. And firefighters, but you can get promoted to fire chief, you get promoted and you can do other things. Being a firefighter, you can also do things on the side. I mean, today you can work at home, even start a podcasting company and get really rich as a podcaster, just do it on your spare time. There's a lot of solutions for those things, for those people that really want to do it. And I think most people that got drive and they're motivated and they care about themselves and they care about their family. I think today in America, certainly. Now, if you're in North Korea or Iran or something like that, it's not so easy. But America, there are so many opportunities here. And it seems like, Americans need to be told by an immigrant such as me how great you have it and how great the opportunities are, because it really is a land of opportunity.
I agree with you. And I think, and we can talk about them today. I'm sure we're going to get into it with some of the philosophy, but there are things that are certainly not as good as they used to be. And there's some trends that we really do have to fix. But at the end of the day, there is still, the American dream may not be as widely attainable as it was in 1970. But it still exists. And you can see people, this is a country, one of the few countries in the world where people really can, I don't like saying it this way, but technically by like wealth, they can jump class structure. Meaning you can come from nothing in this country and then end up being a guy like you. I mean, you even came to this country. You weren't even from here initially, and you didn't come from anything in England. You weren't, like Archduke Karl Barney or anything like that. You were just showing up and getting to work. And I think that stuff like that is a great example. But, one of the trends that does really concern me that I think is leading to this, I guess, like cloud over society that makes people, before they even get to college, wonder what it's all for, is we do see that wealth gap happening, right? Now, I don't think the answer to that is saying there can't be billionaires or anything like that. I think you have to have competition. You have to have people who win, like yourself, and that is what it is. But since Steven Pinker has some charts that really show it, where like since the beginning of the 80s, you just see the distribution of wealth going in a V like this, which to the side, which if you're listening, not watching, this is not a good way to go. And you see such a large percentage of it held by such a small percent of people. And some of the really successful people I've talked to get concerned that there's going to be a part of society that, was able to cash in on that early enough that they're so far ahead that so few other people will ever be able to catch up, and that idea of rising class structure that we still have in America might die. Do you think that's a reasonable concern that some people have?
No.
I didn't think so.
No, I don't think the sky is falling. I think the sky is blue. I think the sky is great. They're up. Come on, there's storm clouds. There's thunder, there's lightning, it rains, it snows.
Sometimes a coconut falls on your head. That's what Kamala said.
Yeah, I mean, that'll happen too.
That's right.
Yeah, so I mean, stuff happens. As they say, shit happens. And it does. But, there's a phrase I read recently, the sun shines, it creates shadows. But the sun doesn't care about the shadows, it just keeps on shining. And America's still got a lot of sunshine there for the people. And sure, there are clouds, and sure, there are problems and so forth. And I don't know how big these problems are and how much the gap is, but I don't care about somebody having more money than me. Well, it's not that many have more money than me. I don't care if they do. And I don't think they keep score. You know what? I tell you something about people with money. it's a problem for them.
Oh, I know very well.
What are you going to do? And that was one of my big problems. What am I going to do with the money? I can't spend it.
Yeah.
You know, I can only have so many fine restaurants that take, go on trips and cruises and airplanes, but then there's money left over. What are you going to do? Particularly when you start getting beyond 65, which I am. I'm 65. As I get a little older, I start to get a little worried about what am I going to do? Because I don't want to die with all this money.
Can't bury you with it.
No, they can't.
Yeah.
No, I can't.
Yeah, that was one of the, I'm grateful, even though I did not like Wall Street, it was not for me. I'm grateful for the time I spent there because I learned a lot. I worked for an awesome dude, and I learned a lot of amazing lessons. And our business dealt with ultra high net worth individuals and public companies. So we were dealing with people that had, I think the average net worth was, by the time I was done, was like 80 or 85 million. We dealt with some people like you who were a billionaire and other people with 20, 30 million. And there are people who handled it the right way and lived life happily and didn't let the bullshit get into their day or worry about what private jet they were taking and shit like that. But then there were other people who never saw a problem they couldn't invent. And all the root causes of those problems were, I would say, themselves. It's a personal problem. But the thing that the incubator of that was the money, whether that be with family or friends or just like stuff where I just want to be like, listen, lady, I'm making $50K a year to tell you what to do. Please stop this, and they wouldn't. And I saw it again and again. And I think there's something to be said for how people approach their money, like whether or not they do look at it like, oh, it's just a score I got to keep with everyone else, or whether they look at it like, hey, I've earned this. This is now it allows me to live my life the way I want to live. And you know what? I'm going to try to find the zen and happiness in that, which seems to be more the route you've taken.
Yeah, that's actually all my. I never planned to get rich. I went into real estate knowing I wanted enough money so I didn't have to worry about money.
Right.
So, that was the thing. The default thing was find something to do that'll make some money, and so do work. So I worked at some real estate, and I made money. I was good. I worked hard at it, and I made the money. But then getting into, I did not think when I decided to get into education, private career colleges, I did not think about money. It just never occurred to me that I would make money running private colleges. Just didn't occur, and I got good at it. I worked very hard at it. And I figured it out. I figured out how to do this, constantly figuring things out, constantly thinking, constantly planning. Built some great schools, and they started getting wealthy, particularly right after the financial crisis. Because people came to school by the thousands.
After the financial crisis?
Oh, yeah, because there's so many people unemployed. When they're unemployed, what are they going to do? They say, oh, I better go back to school.
Let's go get into debt. Let's go.
Yeah, right, let's do it. And so that's what they did. They came to school, and there was a big surge. So I rode that surge. Now, I worked very hard there to take care of that because this was success and opportunity, which then I enhanced and built, and the money started coming in. I was more surprised than anybody, how much money. Whoa, look what's in the bank account. But I never stayed up nights counting it, never even give it a second thought. And even today, I don't give money a second thought. Now, I don't have to, jobs.
That was the next thing.
But I've never really been that concerned about it. When you've got it, Julian, when you've got enough, it's enough. Whether that's like $50K a week or $1 billion or $1 trillion, when you've got enough for what you love and what you care about, whatever it is, teaching or podcasting, and just what you love to do and what you want to do, and you've got enough money to do that, you're blessed. You're blessed. You don't need more. And if it happens, it's fine. It's great.
So you understand that, and that's great. That means you figured it out.
I've lived
it. Exactly. Yeah. There are a lot of people who have more money than you, even some of these people, who there's no such thing as enough. They keep telling themselves.
Have more money than I do.
I know, but if you even look at those, in all seriousness, if you even look at those, it's like there's never, that's a word that they'll be like, well, when I get to this point, I'll have enough. I saw it again and again in my whole career. When I get to this point, I'll have enough. And then you get there, well, now I got to worry about this or that, so I need this much. Yeah. And like, that's no way to live. It's not, I would just want the simple things in life to not have to worry about it. Not have to worry about a bill, not have to worry about going on a nice vacation, But, it's like people have to, you have to actually hold, I think, you have to hold yourself to that. Like, you have to think about where you are right now, and if it's not financially where you want to be like, okay, well, what would it take for me to be there? And then when you're actually there, appreciate that you're there. It doesn't mean shut down and retire and not do anything from that point, but like have some perspective on that. Even where I am right now in my business, money comes in and it goes right out because I spend on it. But I'm grateful to be able to do that, because even just over 2 years ago when I was in my parents' house, I couldn't afford to get my own place. So coming from that to where I'm at now, night and day. So there's like, yes, it's a process. Yes, some of it sucks, but it's like, wow, we've really, if the step was there, we're on this step now. We'll figure out how to get to that step where I don't have to worry about bills and stuff. But on the way there, it's like we're trending in the right direction.
That's a good point. And you mentioned like 3 things that are really important right there. So you're a smart guy, smart cookie.
I'd like to think so.
Yeah, I think so. Appreciate. Stop and appreciate what you're doing and how far you've come compared to what you're doing. A lot of people that are very successful, they're always thinking about the next goal, the next step, what's in the future. And they never stop and say, and they make themselves miserable. I'm not there yet. I still got to do something more. I still got something more. And they're still striving and struggling and stressing for what's in the future. They just stop for a minute. Look at where you've come, dude.
Yeah.
Look past it. Look what you achieved. And so you look back and say, I've done this, I've done that. And so appreciating yourself, also appreciating others in your life. Appreciation's a big word. I love big words like that. Soul, appreciation. Another big word. You want another big word? Gratitude. You feel grateful to yourself. I've done pretty good. I'm really grateful to myself. I'm also grateful to my producer, the amazing producer. I'm also grateful to whoever it is that's been a friend for you, a supporter, an employee that's lifted you up to where you are today.
I think it's really important that you also, as a human, you feel those things. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of performative aspects of that where people are like, oh, I just have so much gratitude. And it's like they're just doing it to try to put it in the universe or whatever. But you actually have to think about, like, especially whenever you're building something, all the people who buy into you and come along with you or support you. I'm not talking about financially. I'm saying literally just like, hey, good job, dude, and stuff like that. Like thinking about coming from nothing with this, it's like those are the people that kept me going. Just like the little text, like, love what you're doing, bro.
That's all huge difference. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Now, you figured out at 39 you wanted to get into education.
Yeah.
You mentioned you got into real estate and were doing that between 23 and 39. What other things were you doing, though, that kind of like got you to that point where you're like, this is what I want my life to be about?
Well, I started to struggle because I knew I didn't, like you, I wasn't into real estate. I didn't want to do it. It was working. I liked it and so forth. But I wanted to figure out what I wanted to do with my life that would be meaningful. I didn't know it at the time, but I wanted my purpose. It was just like a strange thing. And then I came across a book by Ayn Rand, and she talked about a central purpose. And I said, what's a central purpose? Because we all have a lot of purposes. But a central purpose, what is a central purpose and how do you go about it? Now, I talked to my friends. I didn't hire a consultant to figure out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life and what I want to do when I grew up. And I couldn't figure it out. And then I read this book and Rand said it's about values, not religious values, not faith, hope, and charity and being nice to the poor people or helping the homeless, but certain kind of values. Material, real values like health and wealth. Love is a value. Self-esteem is a value. Purpose itself is a value. Your home, your kids, all of these things are tangible, real values. And Rand said it's about values. What are your values in life? And then emerging from your values, you can find a purpose. So I listed down dozens of different things: big values, small values, business values, economic values, personal values, recreation values, pleasures, all of these long lists of things. And I organized them from top to bottom. And I said, what's the top of here? What's the top of value here? I still got those notes. I got pages of notes.
You still have that?
Yeah, somewhere I got them. I put it away.
You got to tweet that out or something.
Yeah, I should write a book about it. Hey, what a good idea, write a book.
Yeah,
I wrote a book, So it's a great book. You guys should read it. Yeah. So anyhow, yeah, look at that book.
Link in description.
Yeah. Don't we pause for a break here and you tell people to buy my book?
Everyone go buy the book right now, The Happiness Experiment. Carl needs the money. Absolutely.
Please buy my
He's
book.
fallen on tough times. And if you buy this, he'll be good.
Yeah, you'll make a lot of money, I guarantee it.
Link in description.
No, you'll be a lot happier. Don't about money though. Yeah. So I what I did is I looked at all these things, and then the most obvious thing in the world occurred to me. I love management. I like managing things. Management to me is a magic subject. Everybody's a manager. You said that to me today earlier.
Yeah.
But it's true. You manage your own life. You manage your family. You manage your business. You manage your money. You manage all these things. And management is a universal knowledge and skill. And I love management. I used to read management books and love it and so on. And then I thought, well, I want to manage. So yeah, what am I going to manage? And I said, well, something, what I'm going to do. So I went back to my values and came across education. Education is a really personal, strong value, a spiritual value, if you like. It's not material, but it's a spiritual thing, education, wisdom, if you like. And I loved that. And I also knew that was a very high value for the world. Education is so critical. It's fundamental. There's so many things to individuals' lives. In fact, the whole nation depends upon good education.
And you were really self-educated too. You never even, you stopped school after high school and traveled.
That's right.
Pretty much,
I did
right?
a little bit of college, but mostly I'm self-educated. I read and I take courses. I've taken hundreds of courses, read hundreds of books. I'm a self-taught person. Right. Yeah, I love that. So education. So then I thought, well, management and education. So I'm going to manage something to do with education. And I had no idea at the time. Now, I'm obviously not going to try to buy a big university, but a friend of mine told me that there are these private career colleges. And I said, what's a private career college? He said, well, I'll arrange a tour for you. So I went on this tour from this small business college. And they said, well, it's practical, it's hands-on. They're here focused on getting a job at the end of it. And I said, well, that's pretty cool. How does it work? And I found out about how it worked, and I knew nothing about it. I never worked in a career college before.
How did it work? I don't know, like, we throw around the term college all the time. There's all different types of colleges. There's all different ways that they actually, like, cut the cake. So how did this specific example, like, from a business perspective work?
It's pretty much the same with all colleges and universities except in degree. Now, all colleges and universities, they have what they call admissions. Harvard has it, Yale has it, career colleges have it. So you get people come in and say, I'm thinking about going to your school. So you give them a tour, you tell them what the tuition is, and you arrange for them to enroll. Now, all the colleges and universities go through an enrollment process. So this person enrolls, and then they go through financial aid. All colleges and universities, they except Heritage and a couple of others, have student financial aid. That's how they survive. So you go through that process, and then they figure out they can afford the tuition, and they start classes. And it's the same sort of thing, only it's much smaller than Harvard or Yale or the big colleges and universities, and it's very focused. They're shorter terms, typically a year or two, so that they're focused on nursing or respiratory therapy or business or accounting or computer skills of some kind, IT. And so it's very much career-oriented. You don't go there to study literature or history or politics.
Who needs that?
Yeah.
Right.
So these are a certain type of student. They want to go to work, and they're looking for work rather than education. If they want to get education, then they go into the humanities and some of the great universities. And they're great universities, but there's some problems there too, as we know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we can get into that. But so you were first learning about this type of college at this time when you're thinking you want to get into the business of education, whatever that is. But it's a lot of them, as you were saying, it's like 1 to 2 years, meaning, you're not paying for a full 4 years. You're paying less. You're more focused, like you said. You're going very specifically in on, this is what I want to do. I'm going to come out doing that. So you're not getting necessarily the well-rounded, full-blown, say, like liberal arts education or something like that, but you are getting a clear, like, mission-oriented process of, I'm going to get exactly what I want out of this degree, and that is to have this kind of job.
Very focused. The knowledge and skills. You get a bit of general education also. It's required by the accrediting agencies. You have to do English and math and some history and stuff like that, civics. But it's mostly focus. If you want to be a nurse, that's what you study. You want to be involved in computers in some way, programming, that's what you learn. You don't do any fluff, and it's accelerated. You don't take 4 years to do it. You take a year or 2 years. And that's what we did. In my colleges, and I built up to 20 on-ground locations and an online university, independent university.
How many years did that take?
I was involved in it for almost 30 years.
Right. So
almost
you started in 81 and then...
Actually, it was later than that. I got my first school in 1985, a small business college in San Jose. I knew nothing. I'd never worked in one of these before. I knew nothing about accreditation. I knew nothing about financial aid. And then I just got involved and I learned about it, took some courses, which is what I do, went to work, and it became successful.
Did you buy that school, or so it was existing already?
It was an existing school. It was troubled, and I took it over.
Why was it troubled?
It was owned by two people, a partnership, and they'd gotten sideways with each other. They were hostile to each other, and they racked up a lot of bills, and they couldn't make they couldn't make the rent, and they couldn't pay their bank loans, so they were underwater. I took it over and fixed it.
How much did you buy a school for in 1985? Do you remember?
The equivalent, probably about $1 million. But I didn't pay cash. I took over their bills. I took over the liabilities. And I did pay a few things for them. I paid their taxes because that was a problem.
Gotta do that.
Yeah, I had to pay that. And I paid their bank loans off. And I did those side of things. So I put in a few $100,000 into it, and then the rest of it was taking over the bills.
So you had already made a good nest egg from your years in real estate and some of your other endeavors.
I'd saved some money out of the real estate, and I poured that money into the college, and that's what happened.
Did you have a family of your own at this point, or?
No, I'm just single at that point.
So you open up the first one. How long did it take to turn that around and actually get that into a place where, students wanted to be and it became a real destination?
Well, it was a beautiful little college. It was a really sweet college, beautiful facility. I loved the faculty. It was troubled, but basically it was really a great school. And I hired somebody to run it because I was going to go off and acquire some other schools. I was now going to build an empire, so to speak.
School empire.
A school empire, education empire. I was going to have 100. My goal was centered. My goal was 100 on-ground campuses. And I could have done that too, but it ran into the government. So the government was a pretty big thing to run into.
Especially in California.
In California and New York, yeah. So anyhow, I hired somebody to run it, and I said, send me money, make some profit and send me the money. And
Joe, send me money. That's our new motto now. Thank you, Julie. Send me money. Lauren, money. Okay. Thank you.
You're making a joke of it, but believe me, it wasn't a joke.
There's no joke right there. I want money.
You want money. So he said, Carl, we got a problem with payroll. Can you send me some money? And I said, that's not what I had in mind. And he said, well, you either make payroll or not. And so I said, all right, just this month I'll make payroll for you. And then the next few weeks, he said, we got rent coming up. We need another check. And after 6 months, I was running out of money.
Yeah.
We were not solvent. So I said, I better get involved with this deeply. And I rolled up my shirt sleeves and, so to speak, slept on the factory floor, not literally, but I worked and got involved in it. And after another 6 months, it was very successful.
So if I'm understanding that correctly, at first you were more, I don't want to overuse this term, but in a sense, like more of the main investor, but passive manager. So you're focused on other endeavors during the day?
No, that's not quite right. No, I was active in management. I did a lot of thinking and planning. That's been my my fallback. That's my default. Think and plan, think and plan. Yeah. And so I'd done a lot of that, but I let him run the operation.
Got it.
And he just wasn't able to do it. And he said, look, if you want this to happen, you're going to have to do it yourself. And I said, okay, I'll come and work with you. And I worked with him. And we then made it very successful. And then I started acquiring and opening new colleges, and then finally got to 20 on-ground campuses. And as I told you, Independence University. We taught solely degree programs, associate's degrees, bachelor's, and then master's levels. We put in a master's program in management, nursing, and computer science. So we had a master's level as well as the others. And our fields were business management, accounting, graphic arts, computer science, and healthcare. And we did respiratory therapy. Had the largest respiratory therapy program in the world. And a large respiratory. We did nursing. We did medical assisting. We did business and accounting. All of those things there. They were very focused. Great schools, beautiful schools, lovely staff. They were lovely.
Building up 20 schools in 30 years is a lot, and because you're essentially creating new brands of schools. And when you look at colleges, it's one of like the oldest institutions in America. So colleges have alumni networks that, started 150 years ago. Obviously, the people 150 years are dead, but you understand what I mean? Like they were able to set up these systems so long ago. So were you guys able to set up pretty good systems for your qualified students when they're leaving school to have connections in the real world to be able to place them in good places?
Yeah, that was a big part of our service. We had a career services department, which we started right in the beginning when the students are enrolling. We said, what you're here for is to get the knowledge and skills so that you can get a job. And we're going to teach you the skills to seek out positions, to interview, to write a resume, all of the things you need to do. And we would work with them and coach them and mentor them until they got a job. This was one of our major metrics. What percentage of the graduates were employed within a certain time frame? And it was a very important metric. And career colleges have that metric, and many of the accrediting agencies require it. It's not required at Harvard or Yale. You can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars and not get a job. In fact, there's a lot of people going to Harvard, Yale, the big schools, and not getting jobs.
Not getting jobs.
Not real jobs, in their field, That's what I'm reading. Is it fake news? I don't know, but it seems reliable.
Well, would that mean that, like, let's just use the most stereotypical one. If someone goes to, like, Harvard to get a Harvard degree and they happen to major in, I don't know, fucking gender studies or something like that, then they get a job on Wall Street because they went to Harvard. Would that count as what you're saying, like someone not getting a job and what they were going there for?
Well, it wouldn't. It would count as a job, obviously, because they're getting a job. Now, I doubt whether Wall Street would hire somebody for gender studies, even though they went to Harvard. But you know,
I've seen it.
You have seen it. But the thing is, properly, you're hired in the field of your study. If you study gender studies, then you should get a job doing gender studies or something. I don't know what you would do. What you would go into politics, I guess. But whatever you study, you should get a job in that field. Unless you're just doing it, say, hey, I don't need the money. I'm not looking for a job. I just want to be a student and a researcher. Or I want to teach. A lot of these people, they end up by teaching gender studies to other people who are not going to get a job.
Yeah. What do you think, as someone who comes from that world and built a bunch of education institutions, what do you think of what's happened, not at all colleges or across the board, but thematically across the college space with what we've seen with respect to, a lack of challenging ideas, a lack of acceptance of diversity of ideas, if you will, and kind of a more, you've seen, not to go too far with it, but you have seen elements of even like Marxism and stuff like that enter college campuses, which is kind of anti-intellectual. What do you think of that whole phenomenon, which has really happened over the last 10 to 15 years more than anything?
Oh, it's very sad, because education made this country great, or at least contributed to it.
Yes.
The founding ideas, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and education. The founders, they created great universities, Pennsylvania was created by Benjamin Franklin. Columbia was founded by, I don't know who did it. Jefferson founded the University of Virginia, and Washington helped fund George Washington University. So they created great educational institutions. And Harvard and Yale, these are great institutions. Unfortunately, there's some parts of them, mostly the humanities, that have gone astray. And they are teaching socialism and Marxism, and they become very Marxist in their humanities, not in their sciences, not in their law, not in their management. But you know that's part of the problem what's happening with America today. Socialism is taking over in America. When I came to this country, communism was a dirty word. Socialism was a dirty word.
You think it's taken over?
Taking over is a big step. Is it in the process of taking over? Yes. Is it too late to turn it around? I hope not. But there's no question that it is advancing, and you see this all the time, how socialism is now respectable. There are people running for office who are avowed communists. Look at Barney and AOC. These are avowed socialists. Socialism and communism, they're very much the same thing. Socialism is communism. Communism is socialism. Just one is a harder word than the other, but they're both basically the same thing. And they're being popular. So yes, communism and socialism is advancing in America. And when I came to America in 1964, that would have been unimaginable. If I'd have said that to anybody at that time, or anybody had said it at that time, they would be laughed at. But it's happened in this last 60 years or so.
What do you think's causing it?
When it comes, the causes. Well, I've got a conspiracy theory.
Please do share.
How would you like? It's almost like a foreign country is infiltrating the universities.
Which one?
Is it the Middle East? Is it China? Is it Russia? I know they're putting billions of dollars. That's a billion dollars, billions of dollars. The Middle East, Qatar, and other Middle East countries, they're putting billions of dollars into American universities and sending their students over here. Is China? China sends a lot of people here. They're putting money into this country. Are they infiltrating our colleges and universities and causing more and more socialism? Socialist professors, it's definitely coming from the universities. You know, that's where it comes from. But what is causing it in the universities? And the conspiracy theory, if you like, because I don't have any information, seems like a foreign country is infiltrating the universities in America. And there's evidence for that.
Yeah, I think it comes down to like everything else in life when you follow the money. Like who's funding what, that's funding what, that's funding what, that's funding something at the university, that's funding people at the university.
Yeah, and what are they funding? They're funding their ideas, their ideology. China wants the rest of the world to be communist. Russians still want the rest of the world to be socialist. They failed. And there are certain influences. They want to get their ideas into the world.
Yes.
And some of the ideas are not very, very good ideas. They're very bad ideas that have caused a lot of harm to millions of people throughout the world. And it's very sad that that should happen to America.
You know, Carl, I agree with you that there are some ideological subversions, if you will, going on, and certainly an amazing, or not amazing, but like a prime example is on college campuses and generationally the way people are thinking about things in a different way than they used to. But I think what we also should be careful of is missing the other part of the plot here, which is that, and Joe and I were talking about this a lot off camera, there are a lot of people who feel like they have never been a part of the capitalism system. And so maybe they're uneducated on what socialism always devolves into. Yeah. Like, if you just read what socialism's supposed to be, it's this amazing idea.
Wonderful, yeah.
It never works once the population gets past a certain number. That said, there's people who may, again, not be educated on what that is, because that's not the specific thing they're looking at. But what they are looking at is the fact that they can't pay their bills. What they are looking at is that there's very few people driving around in Ferraris, and those that do want nothing to do with them. What they are looking at is their corporate jobs, tell them to check in at 9, get out at 5, and there's no hope at the end of it. And by the way, they're 34 years old and they still got $100,000 of college debt because they were told at 17, hey, sign this paper right here. Don't worry about what it means or what the rate is or what that even is. But you got to go to this place for 4 years, get your gender studies degree. I don't really give a shit what you get a degree in, but go there because that's what the system says you have to do. And then they get out on the other side of the system and they go, wait a minute. I mean, I drank and smoked a lot of good stuff, but what was I even doing there for 4 years? And now they're taking it out at the ballot box. So when you see someone, for example, like Zoran, who just won this primary in New York City, I agree with you. The guy is a very clear socialist. I'm into, I don't even like the two-party system, but I'm into Republicans and Democrats because when you go over here way off the edges, it gets crazy and you get to things like socialism. But for people to ignore why he won, which was going to the same districts that broke for Donald Trump this past November and getting those people down to what are your core issues? More money in my wallet. Here's how I'm going to do that for you. Oh, sounds good to me. I'll vote for you. That's what he did. So I think we have to look at, especially guys like you who are powerful people in our society who have lived the American dream and seen the upside of it. I think a big part of what we got to do is also show people that that's still possible and try to fix some of these things that have gotten out of whack. For example, the fact that people are paying $200,000 to go to college for 4 years and not getting anything from it. That is the number one thing that I'm grateful for in my life. I was an only child, and because of that, I didn't have college debt. As far as I'm concerned, that's like being born halfway down the third baseline. I mean, when I talk to my friends who have college debt, even those that have more manageable, it affects their decisions in their 20s. That is not something that I had to worry about. And so I wish there were more people that had that opportunity like me and they wouldn't have to worry about those things.
So, Julian, you've just articulated that very well. You speak very well.
Thank you.
Okay.
I do it for a living.
So right, you're good at it. So what do you think is the cause of that? Where do you think what is your view of what's wrong?
Anger. I think the system broke. I think that, well, let's look at it from the college example. Have you ever read the book by Jonathan Haidt and Greg Lukianoff called The Coddling of the American Mind?
I know of it. I don't think I ever actually read it.
So I read that shortly after I got out of college, and it was like seeing a ghost because I was leaving college right when these kind of movements were just starting. And so my first couple years of college, we didn't really have that, and then we got it. And I say that because I'm on the very back end of the millennials, very back end, right where it starts to overlap with Gen Z. And Gen Z is where a lot of these anger and those types of emotions came up at society and at the system. And when you look at where they came from, Gen Z are people born from late 1996 through, call it like 2011 or something like that. These are kids that grew up post 9/11, during the Iraq War, which was a terrible war we shouldn't have done, the economic crisis where everything crashed, and the wealth gap growing at an exponential rate, and then the internet coming in to consume our whole lives. And also, we need to take some responsibility for this in society, including Gen Z, like all of us, a place where we get addicted to seeing how good everyone else has it and reminded that we don't. And so there is a massive, I wouldn't even say disdain, but there's like kind of that dark shadow casted over the American dream for that generation in particularly. And these are the people now coming out into the workforce. And I think when, someone's making $41,000 a year in New York City right now, working their marketing job at age 24 with, $125,000 of college debt, they're pretty mad at the system. And I think they turn to things like Zoran and say, well, that sounds a little better.
Yeah, You speak to that, unfortunately, very well, and it's not a pretty picture. But I still ask you, what is the root cause of this? Where do you think this mess comes from?
The other side of endless wars, financial strife, and a lack of, and I don't mean this in the socialistic term, but a lack of a more healthy distribution of wealth. Not saying that should be done by the government to go tax people to balance it all out like socialism would want it done, but I'm saying just that V in the wealth gap that's happened. Yeah. I think those are the causes.
Well, I can speak to student debt because I know about student debt, and I think it's unconscionable. I think it's outrageous. And it's come about because the government has provided low-cost student loans. You don't have to qualify for them. Anybody can come and say, "Oh yeah, and they said, "Well, now you can borrow $5,000. Next year you can borrow $6,000. Until you can now borrow $100,000 or hundreds of thousands of dollars." Graduate students, they go up, I think, $500,000. You can borrow.
$500,000.
Yeah, you can buy that much. You can get that much because you get one degree and then you get another, and you just go on. There's a huge amount of student debt in master's degree programs, postgraduate, and so then the university is getting fat. They're getting all of this money coming in, and plus an endowment. So they have this money. They increase the student tuition each year, and it's been going on for the student tuition has so far is like many times multiples the rate of inflation. So they've loaded up these kids with this massive amount of debt. But you know where it started? It started with the government programs, well-meaning. You know, we want education. We're going to support education. We're going to increase the amount of student loans. Isn't that great? No, it's not great because these kids are going to be stuck with this. And the great universities, I mean, you know, education costs you, can't cost in some of the great universities, could cost you $100,000 per year.
Yeah.
And then you've got all of these things like that. Many of them are $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year. And that racks up over 4 or 5 years. And then you throw in a postgraduate study and you can be up into hundreds of thousands of dollars, which you said is like, now I'm going to start my life. What a great graduation gift for me. Now pay off your student loans. But where did it come from? It came from these well-meaning programs that come up. And then, you know, endless wars. There's the Kuwait War and there's other wars, whether you believe, or the Iraq War that went into Kuwait, whether you like that or not. There's probably, of course, Vietnam is a whole different story. And then Afghanistan, you know.
How that turned out.
And what?
How that turned out.
And how that, that was just horrible. Yeah. That was tragic, terrible end to it. Anyway, can we change the subject? Hey, look, my book, it's The Happiness Experiment, folks.
It just got real dark in here.
Happy,
you know, we got to get to the darkness to get to the happiness. Last question on this then, and then we'll get more towards the stuff you want to talk about. Yeah. But how would you fix it? How would you fix the college system
I'm planning to fix it.
You are?
I am planning to fix it because I'm creating a great university.
Love that segue. See what I did there? That was good.
Yeah, you're pretty good at this. Yeah.
Thank you.
So what I'm doing is using advanced technology, AI, and avatars. And I'm creating great professors, perfect professors that will engage with you one-on-one, which is the most effective and efficient way of teaching. You can learn twice as much in half the time, and there's studies on this, even at Harvard recently. They did a study, regular teachers, avatar teachers or tutors, twice as much in less than half the time. You can look it up. It's Kirstein. I can give you the
let's
site.
look it up.
But Harvard University, they did this study.
Pull that mic in, if you don't mind.
Oh, I'm sorry. They did this study, and so I'm creating these avatars. You'll be able to engage with them. They'll be motivating. They'll be totally patient, respectful. You can ask them anything about anything that they know. And if you ask them a question off the wall, they'll say, well, I don't know about that. But they'll know everything they know. They'll have it right at their electronic fingertips. And they'll be able to teach you step by designed step. Not you know, a professor just professing, you know, from the podium, but teaching you step by step in an organized, designed way. And then you go from one professor to another. You go from Socrates, then you go to Plato, and then you go to Aristotle, then you go to the next philosopher and the next one through. The same with economics, the same with history, the same with finance, the same with management. You go from one professor to another in an organized, structured way.
So you're going to have Professor Aristotle?
Absolutely. And you'll be able to ask him a question.
Aristotle.
Absolutely. I've already created Socrates. I'll show you a video on it if you like.
Yeah. Can we pull this up?
Yeah. Show.
Is this what you gave Joe before on the PowerPoint?
Yeah. That's this one there.
All right, we got this, Joe.
This one is Socrates. Yeah.
I'll turn the mic on and see what that is. So you're designing them, obviously, like in the image that you want, but you have a team of guys.
Team of guys, they're lifelight. And this is one like 6 months old now, which is ancient history. But this is the kind of guy.
Okay.
This is Plato.
Let's get a mic on
This is Socrates.
Let's get a mic on Socrates. Hear what he has to say.
Hey guys, it's Alessi. Sorry for the interruption, but for this part, we have copyright issues with it due to the music, so we are going to skip it. If you want to see the full reaction to this AI video, go to the Spotify. All right, back to the video.
Did you have Tom Wilkinson do his voiceover before he died? No. That's literally Tom Wilkinson.
Is that right?
Yeah.
It's an art.
Right?
Finding
From the Patriot? Yeah.
Finding the images and finding the voice takes a lot of time. You know, what does Shakespeare really sound like? What did Benjamin Franklin sound like? So there was a lot of thought and work and back and forth on that. The images and the voice were a work of art. But this is like 6 months ago. We're perfecting it. We're getting better. But these will be our professors. You will learn literature from the great writers such as Shakespeare. You'll learn management from Peter Drucker and the other great management professors.
All right, I have so many questions here, but let's start at the root of it. How do you go about, just to keep an example on it, how do you go about building Shakespeare the Professor? Do you just take every word he ever wrote and every biography ever written about him and like upload it to the AI and have it amalgamate all that to create a character? How does it happen?
Yes. You said that very well. And it's not hard, but it's not easy. You in a large language model, you can get everything he wrote, which is very small when you compare it to the masses of books. The AI have 130 million books. Shakespeare, what he's got, a few dozen, maybe a few hundred, but you get those down. He is trained on them, completely those, and he can answer instantly any question about anything he wrote. And he'll be able to go step there, why he wrote what he wrote and why he did this and why he did that. So we'll be able to explain his theme and the plot to each of his pieces. And he will know those things because he has all of that information at his fingertips.
So, I mean, it's wildly fascinating and can definitely give a lot of information out. But there's something, I've been talking to you about this very shortly before we got on camera, but I'll expand upon it now that we are on camera. There's something about this that's like reminiscent of some of the same questions I have for my friend Ben Lamb, who's building that company called Colossal, which is trying to remake the Woolly Mammoth and just remade the Dire Wolves. And one of the things I've talked about with him is that it's very hard to evolutionarily recreate something that's been extinct. So if you look at the woolly mammoth, you may be able to get some DNA sequencing using CRISPR that recreates something that looks exactly like the woolly mammoth, walks like the woolly mammoth, the whole bit. But it's very hard to build in the millions of years of evolution that happened in their actual environments that shaped how that DNA got to where it is. So when you're looking at a Professor Shakespeare, it's not a sentient Shakespeare. It's not, you didn't take Shakespeare's brain from the ground and actually like check the DNA of it and rebuild his brain. You took all the publicly accessible, what was written down information and amalgamated it into what would be the closest thing. But effectively, would you say you're creating like an amazing interactive Google of Shakespeare rather than Shakespeare himself because you're not literally recreating who he was? Does that make sense?
You said that very well again. Yes, exactly.
I'm on a roll today, apparently.
I mean, I had conversations with Socrates, with Julie, and it was like I was talking to him. He said, let me tell you about me. My mother was a midwife. And my father was a stonemason, and I was born here, and I did there, and I was doing this, and this is how I got interested in philosophy, and this is how I developed this, and this is my thinking on that. So he's having a conversation with us, and we can then stop him and say, Socrates, what do you mean by wise ignorance? That sounds weird, and he explains it to us. And Julie's sitting there, and he came across this word called labyrinthine. Labyrinthine. He used that word, and Julie said, what does he mean by labyrinthine? I said, Professor, just a minute. You've used the word labyrinthine, and I'm sitting here with Julie. Julie's my slave. And he never blinked. because in Athens they had slaves. I said, my slave Julie doesn't know what the word labyrinthine means. He said, oh, I'm sorry, Julie. Picked up her name like that. Of course, it was all programmed. I'm sorry, Julie, let me explain that to you. A labyrinthine means it's very complex and you don't have an answer. You're getting lost within the complexity, and that's what labyrinthine means. And she gets and says, well, give me an example of that. And he responds right back. So these people are... you can get fanciful about this, like these are human creations. They're not. It's all AI. But believe me, they feel. And they feel a sense. When I was talking to Socrates, I got to know him better than any professor who's been talking to me about Socrates. Now, I've heard professors talk about Socrates, but there's something magical about this appearance, this picture. It's a bit like a movie, You know that these people don't really exist, but you can get moved by them if they're good. And these professors will be really great.
It's an immersive experience in a way.
It was definitely immersive. I mean, you're talking to the man, and he's giving it to you straight. No biases. It's just pure education.
Do you worry about the death of human interaction? And it's not just this, it's everything. I mean, we see the speed of light with which AI is moving now, but this is an amazing creation. And yeah, we just spent a half hour or whatever talking about all the issues, for example, right now with regular colleges and, the people that work there sometimes. But isn't there something to be said about the ability for student and teacher to form an actual, student-teacher relationship that goes beyond what technology could possibly replace?
You're right about that. You're right. The human interaction, you can't beat it. I mean, we think Zoom is great, and it is. But when you get people together in a room, it's a different dynamic. And it's the same thing with education. What we're going to do to help with that, every student that comes on is going to have a study partner. And so they will develop a relationship, a human relationship with another student. So
student on student.
Student on student. So that will be required. The other thing, we'll have meetups in the major cities around the world, whether it's Los Angeles or Delhi or Shanghai, wherever we'll get enough students, they can meet up and talk to each other.
So these aren't going to be physical campuses at all. It's all online.
Everything is totally virtual or online. Yeah.
Do you think that loses some of the experience, though, in the sense that part of going to college is, living away from home for the first time for most of us, actually being in a different environment, being in your own ecosystem in that way? Do you feel like that gets lost?
There's going to be benefits to both of the systems. Our system will have benefits such as completely accessible anywhere in the world and an affordable price to anybody. There'll be no student debt.
No debt.
No debt whatsoever. The tuition will be in America a few $100s a month, but in Rwanda or in Africans, we'll lower the tuition to that particular country's economics. Right. So it'll fluctuate in the world. The idea is to get tens of millions of students all over the world. Anybody can do it at a price they can afford, and so forth. So that's the benefit of this. But the interaction that you can get from going to a great university, mixing with other students in that will continue and should continue, and is great. But most people cannot take the time. They don't have the money to travel across the country and get into student houses and pay tens of thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to go to these great countries, but they can afford a few $100s a month, a car payment, if you like.
Yes.
And this will be this kind of education. Now,
how many years, by the way? Is it a 2-year degree, 4-year degree?
It's a 4-year degree, but probably could be done in 2 or 3 years because one-on-one is just so much faster.
Oh, so it's literally going to be one-on-one with the AI, and then maybe 2-on-1 if you have the student partner with you.
No, it'll be one-on-one. I guess you could have a partner with you. You could sit down with somebody else, but mostly it's one-on-one, and you're going through an exact designed process to learn. I mean, Socrates is going to teach you what all the essentials of his philosophy. That's the other thing. We're not going to be teaching fluff or nice to know. So it will be the essentials of each professor. If they want to go on and study and they want to do some other things, that's fine. But this is going to be straight education, just if you like, just the facts, ma'am, just what it is, and they'll go from one step to another in a 4-year program done in 2 or 3 years.
So Socrates grades your papers, grades your tests and things like that. Your one-on-one AI partner does all that.
We're going to be competency-based. So rather than grade-based, you don't advance until you've demonstrated mastery. And there will be a constant competency check as you go through. Let me be sure that you understand the lesson that we've just done. Explain to that in your own words. Now, Socrates actually did with us. He said, what do you mean? What do you understand by the word wise ignorance? And I answered him in my own words. And he said, no, that's not right. Let me explain it again to you. So he explained it again to me because I had misstated it. So there'll be those competency checks as they go through the program. And what you'll get at the end of it is I'm mastered these knowledge and skills rather than a series of grades on the transcript. There'll be a list of these knowledge and skills.
So it's not as much, like, is this going to be scheduled in the sense that you have class at 9 a.m. or you have class at 12 p.m. and it's going to go this long for a semester? Or is it more just at your own speed work with the AI?
It'll be accessible 24/7, but there will be some structure in terms of how much time they need to spend on, they'll be full-time student. They need to put in so much time online to keep moving. And if they're faltering, then we will intercede and say, you're having a problem. Is there something going on? So we'll have a student guide who will check in with you and say, have you run into a problem? We've missed you. Come on back in. So we'll keep them moving and motivated.
It's such a different concept. Like the way you're basically, you bought the land and you're tearing down the house and you're building something entirely new.
Well, I don't want to tear anything down. I just want to create a new system, if you like, the university of the future, accessible to everyone in the world at an affordable price with a rigorous university level, which is constructed and designed in a way to use the most effective pedagogy. Big word, pedagogy, but it just means the art and science of teaching. And every one of our professors will learn the most effective way of teaching, the fastest way, the most effective way, because they'll know how to do these. Like that, they'll connect theory with the practical. So you don't just talk about theory all the time if you're into philosophy or economics and so on. You talk in practical terms too. They will define very precisely all of the terms and all the words very rigorously. So they'll know what the pace of the student is, for instance. They're not going to talk too fast or move too fast with the concepts. They'll take one concept at a time and then the next concept. And they won't be rushing through as many professors do. After a professor talks, you say, what the hell was that all about?
Yes.
You're lost. These guys will not let you do that. They'll go step by step, very, very exact at your pace. If you're very smart, they'll go faster. If you're a little slower, they'll go a little slower for you. And they'll teach in your language. If you want to be taught in Japanese or Chinese or French or German, you can do that too. What professor could do that? You can do that.
You can't do that.
Yeah.
So does Socrates keep his Greek accent in Chinese?
Now, there was a challenge. What does Socrates sound like? We couldn't have him speaking Greek. We can't have him speaking American or English.
Right.
So that's the best we came up with. And it isn't bad.
I liked all of them. I'm not liking the Franklin one, though. Ben didn't sound like that.
Well, he was a challenge.
Guy.
He was a challenge. He's an Englishman, basically.
Listen, we claim him here, respectfully.
Well, we debated that.
His son actually was the governor of Jersey. That's neither here nor there. But we claim him in America.
That's not a very special achievement. But
all right, Carl. You watch
excuse me.
I got a couple guns out there, pal.
But the thing is that it was a challenge to get the right accent, even the right images. And we went through thousands of different images and finally found the one. And we say, is it perfect? No. Is it the best we can come up with all of the different things? Yes. How does he speak? Well, he doesn't speak, so we do that.
What's the oversight of these like? Like, it's an AI, obviously. It's brilliant and can amalgamate all these things that a human being can't do at any rate. But you guys are running the college, you and your team. Do get replays of any session that happens between an AI and a student? And how do you assess like the AI's perceived performance versus what you were expecting it to do, and student performance? Like, how does that all work?
Well, there's going to be feedback from students. You know, we'll challenge the students as we go through with these competency checks. Have they mastered it before they move on? So that will all be recorded. But we'll also ask feedback, particularly now, from our students. Was the professor clear? Did you understand it? Were you working at the right pace? So we'll get all that kind of feedback, like, don't like, too fast, too slow, and we'll fine-tune it as we go through. Because this is all going to be quite innovative. And so we will build it until we perfect it.
It's kind of cool that people that you clearly have been inspired by, influenced by, insert word here, are the characters that you're creating in your own educational cinematic universe now. You ever think about like the younger you when you was first finding these people, even imagining being able to create them later?
No, that would have been a dream beyond a dream to be able to think about this. But you're right. You know, whoever these characters are in history, like I'm a big fan of Ayn Rand. We've created an Ayn Rand. We'll have her as part of our professor, one of our professors. And so we'll have all the great, you know, there's thousands of avatars who will all be, you know, arranged in degree programs. So, you know, there can be like 30 or 40 different professors in a program in philosophy, for instance, or in management. You can have a dozen or 2 dozen different professors that cover each aspect of it.
So you're going to have a diversity of ideas drawing from an all-time all-star team of, you know, great thinkers.
Yeah, an all-star team of great thinkers. You're absolutely right. And it'll be there, you know, we're just going to do straight things. I mean, we'll also have Karl Marx there with Ayn Rand. And we may have them debating.
You're going to have a Professor Karl Marx?
I'm afraid so.
Good for you. No,
we've got to do
I'm
that.
proud of you.
No,
That's
it's got to be, it's
yeah.
pure education. It's straight education. And you'll hear it from Karl Marx. And he's very seductive. He's very believable. And as you pointed out a little while ago, this utopia vision is very seductive. You know, wow, any young people say, oh, that's great. Why don't we all go get along and we all share everything and so forth? Yeah, what a wonderful world. All these billionaires can give their wealth away to me. Oh, that sounds good.
In practice, that never works, though.
In practice, it doesn't work because it's against human nature. Human nature rules. We are what we are. We are who we are. And we pursue our own life. Your life is different from my life. Your goals and dreams and values, in many cases, vary from mine. Well, we share things in common, but the things that we don't have, or their differences, are massive. Yeah. And we are all different. So it's a beautiful ideal, you know, perhaps, but it's against human nature and can never work and always ends up in a terrible place. And there's so many examples around it. North Korea,
China.
China.
I just had a North Korean defector sitting in your chair for 5.5 hours the other day.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. It was like listening to 1984 through a human being who lived it.
Horrific.
Crazy. Which, by the way, good get. That was you guys? Yeah. Lauren. Shout out to Lauren. But I am intrigued by the fact that you are still creating people that may even represent ideas that you completely disagree with to give a full, well-rounded education. Because that was going to be my next question. How do you're creating AIs that are based on these people to focus on education of the facts. You said, like, just the facts, man. So in a way, on the one hand, you're trying to eliminate human opinion, and I mean this in a good way, in the sense that there's no political bend. On the other hand, you are invariably still going to technically run into that without the human emotion of politics in it, through the ideas that someone like an Ayn Rand or a Karl Marx is teaching in their actual lectures. So you're okay with the idea of students being able to decide for themselves without being, say, no pun intended, lectured at how to think.
You're absolutely right about that. And this is a major concern, because what we're going to be doing right from the beginning is fostering independent thinking, critical thinking by the student. It will be all the way through this. There's two guides. One is Prometheus, the guy who brought enlightenment to the world from the gods, is the Titan, and Athena, goddess of wisdom. So you can choose the male or the female version, but they're both intellectual guides all the way through, and they will ask you, what do you think about the difference between Plato and Aristotle? Because they came at a completely different at the end of it, you know. What do you think about Karl Marx and Ayn Rand? Do you believe this? Do you have evidence for it? Because there's going to be three things, three values, which we will foster. And this, you can call it a bias if you like, but it isn't a bias. Reason. We will inculcate, foster as much as that objectivity, looking at facts, looking at magnificence, asking questions, and also pursuit of truth. So reason, objectivity, and truth, those will be all the way through, and we will inculcate, a big word, inculcate that with our students, and they'll be challenged to think, what do you think about that? Give me an example of it. Do you think that that is true? What evidence can you provide for that? Do you think this Karl Marx theory, this utopian world works? Can you point to any example? Can you point to a country where this has ended up where people are doing well? Can you point to a country where it didn't work? Why do you think it didn't work? Why do you think it did work? So the students will be constantly challenged. And one of our key values, we want to graduate students who are independent thinkers, who've been over several years, and it'll take years to develop that attitude of, why. So hold on, I want to see the evidence. I want to see if there's real credible proof for this. And so those will be our graduates, new intellectuals, if you like.
Yeah, and I hope that actually comes to fruition. Those three pillars are, I think that's something everyone can get behind. It's just been, there's these things that happen in society now on either end of the political spectrum where I haven't heard examples with education as much other than the high-level college stuff we talked about, but, you know, terms will be thrown around like critical thinking or independent thought or, you know, drawing your own conclusions, and they're thrown around by people who are saying that to others under the assumption that they're going to come to the same conclusions that they themselves have come to, and when they don't, they're like, "Oh no, not like that." and I've seen it on both sides of the spectrum, and I'm like, you know, looking at you and creating a system like this, I hope it turns out that way, where it's like, hey, we're just educating these students. We've created these avatars that are doing it well, and if a student walks away from Karl Marx's class and thinks there's some things of that they think might be right, hey, that's all right. I think they're going to be wrong, but that's their free will to think that.
That's exactly right. I mean, there may be some people came back and say, I prefer Ayn Rand or I prefer Karl Marx rather than Ayn Rand. Hope not, but it could happen. But we're going to, it's just, again, our mantra is pure education. And
you're going to make sure you code Karl Marx right. You don't make him an idiot because you want to make him an idiot. If I see Karl Marx with Down syndrome, I'm going to know you're in on it.
No, it will have to be. It'll have to be. We'll have people watching over our shoulder. Okay. We'll have an academic advisory committee to keep us honest.
Okay, I like that.
And we are looking for high-level advisors. Maybe you can suggest some advisors. I want an advisory team committee, and we're looking for advisors.
That would be cool. What are you looking for specifically, like specific fields? Or
I'm looking for obviously academic advisors, high-level, really, like you were talking about Singer. I'd like him.
Singer.
Was
I talking about him?
Yeah, you were talking about... Pinker.
Oh, Steven Pinker.
Steven Pinker. Yeah,
he's doing something I haven't looked at in a while. He's doing something that there's a new university, I want to say, down in Austin or something that he's been involved with.
In that one? Yeah. I wouldn't mind some of the people down in Austin. Yeah. You know, but they're using old technology. They should be involved with what I'm doing, because I think they'd love to do that.
Can do that.
I'd like to get a bunch of those people as advisors. I want academic advisors. I want marketing advisors. I want tech advisors. I want management advisors. I want anybody that says, this is a great idea, I want to be part of it. It's not going to be a money-making. It'll be a nonprofit. I decided to make it a nonprofit.
You made a nonprofit.
It's a nonprofit, yeah.
So how does that work? When people hear nonprofit, they go, okay, no one really makes money, but you still put out salaries to people.
We'll make a lot of money. For-profit companies make a lot of money. and they make a lot of money, and it'll be very profitable with millions of students, but the money will get poured back into education throughout the world. The idea
So
is
you're not really taking it home in that
I don't want any money out of it. In fact, I'm pouring money into it. I'm going to finance it personally, put the money into it. That's one of the uses of my money. That's one, my legacy, if you like. My big dream is this, and that's what I'm putting all of my money, a lot of my money, major part of my money into this and making it work. Now, I expect it to be very, quote, profitable, but the money won't go to anybody. It'll go to be a nonprofit corporation.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Now, what makes you, you've been in business for a long time. Like I said, I thought you were way younger than you were. It's really impressive. But like, what makes you want to pour your heart and soul into such a huge, unforeseen endeavor like this at this point, especially, and I think I'd love to get your thoughts on what this was like behind the scenes, especially after you successfully built up so many colleges and then had the government come after you and make claims against you. That you had to, maybe if you wouldn't mind giving some background on that for people so that they understand what happened there.
Okay. Well, you've got two questions there.
Yeah.
Let me maybe I'll start with, there was a campaign started about 15 years ago against private for-profit colleges. And it just so happened that my colleges became non-profit, which they didn't like either. But there was a campaign to cripple and close down private career colleges. They closed down Corinthian, they closed down ITT, and a bunch of others. They ended up by closing about half of the colleges and universities. And this was a socialistic, activist campaign because they didn't like profit in education, and they didn't like profit-making schools like career schools going into competition with the community colleges.
Right.
Because a lot of the students and the teachers came from community colleges, and they felt that we were, quote, stealing their students and stealing their professors. We were not unionized. Community colleges are unions. So the teachers' unions, the education unions came after us too, along with the politicians.
I see why he's using AIs now. No unions for them.
Yeah, no unions, that's right. No unions, that's right. But there was the likes of Maxine Waters. She is
She's a real beauty.
She is a lovely lady, but she's an avid enemy. She hates private career colleges. I mean, she goes into she becomes a crazy lady, even crazier when she talks about private career colleges. And Elizabeth Warren is another lady that hates private career colleges. And so they've had these campaigns across the country for about 15 years, and they closed down half of all the schools, and we were part of that program. We had great schools, happy students, but they would, of course, say we were terrible schools and unhappy students. But I know that. But there's so many lies being told today. It's just, Julian, it's everywhere. What is true, what is false? And that's one of the reasons I want to do this great university, because we'll be pursuit of truth. And we will teach our students how to find the truth. And we'll define the truth. It's not that hard on what the truth is. You just define it carefully. You know how you go about finding out what is true. And we will foster that with all of our students. I mean, and that's a vision I have. I mean, you asked me what was my motivation.
Yes.
Education. On a personal level, when we know stuff, we can do stuff. When you know, you can be successful. When you know, you can become happy. But you got to know before you can do anything. You have to know. And it's all come back to education on individuals, communities, and any countries. In fact, the world. If you want to make the world a better place, and I do, I don't know why, because, I don't own the world. But for some, you
Not
get
yet.
that. Not yet. That's right. I'm working on it. But, you care about the world. You care about life. And I've seen the world, so I know what people live. I've seen Calcutta with millions of people living on the street. I know. I've been to Rwanda recently. I love Rwanda, but it's one of the poorest countries in the world, but they're great people. And I care about that, and for some reason or other. And I'd like to bring education, real education, credible, honest education. Now, there's a word for you. Honest education. Telling it as it really is from the individual people, teaching their works, their books, their lectures authentically, without any opinion, without any bias, no indoctrination. And I think that inspires me. I love to see that. This is if I can when I created this, not if, when I create this great university with thousands of professors, millions of students worldwide, that'll bring a smile to my face and it'll make me happier.
When did you, like, at what point in your life did you have a moment where you sat back in your chair and said to yourself, you know what, I really am happy?
I remember a time when I was so happy that I couldn't fall asleep. It's really weird. I was just feeling so good. Something so good, and I just was so alive, and I laid there. I just couldn't sleep, just so happy.
How old were you?
Oh, this actually about 10 years ago. Then something bad happened, and
what happened?
I don't know. But I get good and bad things happen all the time. Come on, it goes up, it goes down.
Right.
But the core of happiness, I don't know when I would say, I'm happy. I've had happy times and lower times, but happiness goes up and down. Mm-hmm. As we coast through life. And for most people, it stays at a certain level as they go through life. And then you hit a road, you hit a cloud or a storm or something happens, you can start to decline. And sometimes it can be a steep decline, and sometimes it recovers, but sometimes it doesn't. And that happens to some people. Or you can, your trajectory, if I had to read you, your life is up and down, but you're climbing. Slowly, imperceptibly, little by little, but you're getting happier. You're happier today than you were 3 or 4 years ago.
Well, that's easy to do. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So you're on an upward slope. Mm. And the idea of this book, which you don't talk about, come on, talk about my book. I need to sell books.
Once again,
I need the money.
Fund Carl.
I need the money.
We got to fund him. All right?
All right, please.
More jets, more helicopters.
$25. Yeah, it's available from Amazon.
He needs a mansion in Rwanda that's going to cost at least $20. Let's go.
Yeah, if you want a scholarship to buy the book, you can get something. So that's the story of the book, you see, because I didn't say to my friends, I want you to be happy. They were already happy. You're happy. And it's like all about increasing happiness. Mm. And we can all increase our happiness, whatever level we have now, and we're all at different levels. Like if I were to pin your level, you're a pretty high happiness level, somewhere between interest and enthusiasm. You're not a content guy. If I said to you, you're content. Yeah, you're not content. You're higher than contentment. Mm. Contentment is a sort of low level. Yeah, I'm happy. Hey, it's cool. Big deal. But and it goes up from interest. I'm, fascinated by life. Life is really interesting. And then you get to say enthusiasm. I love what I'm doing. Life is great. And then it can even get to, I just love my life. My life is working in every aspect. And you go on up the life to exhilaration, to ecstasy, or maybe serenity if you can reach those levels. But there are levels of happiness that we can go up. And there's also levels down. But let's just talk about it. You can increase your happiness. And that's the whole purpose of this experiment. Can my friends increase their happiness? And if you let me take a break now, I'll promise to tell you the rest of the story.
All right, real quick. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. You were just telling me off camera real fast, you got a Steve Jobs thing going on as well?
Yeah, Steve Jobs, about 40 years ago, was talking about how he would love to be able to talk to Aristotle and ask him a question and get an answer. And he thought sometime in the future, he said within his lifetime, but fortunately not there, we'll be able to do that. And now Steve Jobs' dream of being able to talk to Aristotle is now possible with this new technology. We will create a perfect Aristotle. And he'll answer all of your questions.
I need Professor Steve Jobs too, and I need Professor Steve Jobs and Professor Aristotle talking to each other while they're teaching me.
We'll do that for you.
All right.
Sure. Okay.
I might join this university. A few $100 a month. I mean, why not? Get a little Socrates in my life.
Well, I'll have you as an advisor. Would you like to be an advisor?
I would love to be an advisor. It's actually, I'm very passionate about seeing if there are ways we can fix the education system because personally, like, I feel very fortunate. I feel like I had a great experience. Yeah. And I talked to a lot of people who didn't, and I completely understand that. So it's like, man, if I could get, however it happens, whatever the future education is, clearly you might be onto something here, but if I could get a translation of like the happiness level I had with my experience across a way wider part of the population who goes to college, and they could get some results out of that in the real world, I mean, I think that'd be amazing. So
All right,
I'm honored you'd ask, but yeah, I'd love to get
You are
involved.
recruited and on the advisory committee.
All right, very
Thank you,
cool.
sir. We'll
Look at
keep you
that.
informed.
I'm the first YouTuber on there, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely the first.
You didn't
YouTuber,
offer
yes.
Tommy G?
No, I didn't.
Fuck you, Tommy. I got
Hey,
it first.
Sorry, Tommy. It wasn't my fault.
I love that documentary you did with him, though.
Did
That
you
was
really?
good. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's
Well,
one of my
thank you.
really good friends. He's a great guy.
I had a really fun day with him and his team. He's a smart guy too.
Very
He's
smart.
thoughtful. Liked his team.
Yep.
We had a whole day together.
Yeah, no, his team's, I mean, I'm biased, but they're the best. And they attack so many different wide-ranging stories, including many that a lot of other people don't, you know, they're like afraid to cover or afraid to go on the ground to where it is and get it. And they do it in a way that makes it educational, entertaining, and sometimes even like, you know, comedic it where appropriate as well. And I just think I think the world of what Tommy does. So it's cool.
It did.
You let him behind the doors for a day.
Yeah, it was good.
You took him on the
yeah.
chopper too.
I took that we put on a chopper for him. Yeah, he liked that. He
Yeah.
liked that coming on the chopper. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if they have those in Milwaukee. Right?
Maybe not.
He's like, no, I've never landed there before. But before we went to the break, we were talking about the happiness levels and everything. You were talking about, you know, content is kind of like a lower level of it, and then towards the top is more like people who are constantly desiring to go farther. And I think the catch-22 with that can be what we talked about earlier, where, you know, you get to a point where you're very happy where you're at, but you need more. You need more, and you can fall into that trap of not enjoying where you are, right? So you kind of got to have a real conversation with yourself, I would imagine, at all times to have that perspective, right?
Exactly. You know, but it's an ongoing, gradual, little by little increase. And this is what I see you doing. You know, that there'll be upswings, big swings and downswings and so forth, but gradually your level of happiness is increasing. And you're talking to a point where you get to a point where you're loving life. And happiness is a successful state of life, just not financially successful, but you have a family, you have relationships, you have your health, you have all the things in your life working very successfully. That's also happiness. And you can always get more success in different ways. And get happiness in different ways, different intensities, different levels.
One of the things I heard you talking with Tommy G about was at some point you had a near-death experience, and that changed your perspective. What happened there?
Well, that really did change things. I was flying, and the plane had just taken off, and we're climbing for altitude. The engines are very noisy. I'm sitting at the front of the planes, and suddenly there was this massive explosion, kaboom. The whole plane shook, and I thought the whole back of the plane had been blown off. I mean, it was,
God.
and then after that noise of the engines, total silence. Nothing, no air conditioning noise, nothing at all. And eerily, the plane continued to climb. And it was like there was some hand like pulling us up. But then, of course, gravity took over, and the plane started to dive to the ground. And I'm diving down the ground, looking out there, and we're seeing the houses down below. And I just knew I was going to die. I wouldn't even. It was just there was nothing I could do about it. I'm in a plane, I'm diving to the ground, I'm going to die. The flight attendant came up and he opened up this thing and he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, we've had a technical problem." That's exactly what he said, I swear. And then he said, "We're heading back to the airport." I said, "No, dude, we're heading straight to the ground." And well, you're going to have to read the book if you're going to find out whether I lived or died from that happening.
Oh,
we
that's right.
were heading right for the ground.
I'm talking to an AI right now.
This is I'm an avatar. Yeah. So that got me thinking about the people in my world. Now, rather than schools and universities and churches and so forth, in my world, I had my friends. I had two professors who taught and coached me. I had my employees, former employees and current employees. I had a housekeeper, had an assistant that I had a driver. All of the people that I believed had helped me become successful and happier. I was very grateful to them. Gratitude is a very powerful emotion. you know, and I have that emotion with the people that helped me become successful. So I put them in my will. And then I started to think about them after this near-death experience and said, you know, I could have been dead and they would be getting all of this money and I wouldn't be alive to see it. So that changed my perspective on it. And so I decided not to wait until I died, that I would then bring these people in one at a time and say, look, I'm very grateful for what you've done for me. You've helped me in this way. You've done this. I would not have been successful and not as happy was it not for what you did. And I explained to them what they did. So I said, you're in my will. And I told them how much, and they said, oh, that's wonderful. And I said, yeah, but there's a problem. They said, what do you mean a problem? I said, well, I plan to live until I'm 120. And they said, well, that is a problem.
Buddy, I'm only making 80.
Yeah. So I said, the other thing is I'd be dead and I wouldn't be able to see you enjoying it. And so you would begin on it. And I said, look, I have the money now. So I'm going to bring it forward and give you the money now. And that created a big emotional reaction. All that money now? Are you kidding? Is this for real? Am I dreaming? So, you know, they were very, very profoundly affected by it. And I said, yes. But look, I want to be sure that this money is really going to have a good effect for you. I want you to increase your happiness with this money. I don't want you to just be overwhelmed by it, because money can be a problem if you don't know what to do with it. And so I said, I want a plan on what you're going to do. And they said, a plan? What do you mean a plan? What kind of plan? I said, I want you to write a happiness plan. They said, well, what's a happiness plan? I said, I'll hire a coach, a happiness coach, who will then teach you what it means to become happier. And once you have the plan, you've done the planning with your spouse, with your friends, whomever, you do the planning, then I'll send you the money, all of it at one time. So they wrote up the plan, and the plans are in the book. Samples of the plans are in the book. When I got the plan, I read it over, not to prove it, but to just see that they'd given it thought, and I sent them the money on it. And then the experiment was, what happened? Did these people increase their happiness? How did they go about it? And the answer is yes, they increased their happiness. Some incredibly big changes. Others, but everybody increased it to some degree.
Because they were doing things with it actively that required them investing their time and their efforts and their happiness in it? Is that what you would say?
Exactly. They had to, this forced them to say, oh, I need a happiness plan. That means I've got to decide to increase my happiness. And so once you make that decision, I'd like to be happier. I'd like to increase my happiness. No matter how happy you are now, I'd like some more of this stuff. It's good. It feels good. I love being happy, and I want more of it. But you need a plan. And most people, I've never met anybody that had a happiness plan before. You know?
I've never heard of that before.
Yeah. So this is, and so this idea of creating this happiness planning, and in a sense, the money I gave them was a happiness grant. So a happiness grant, happiness coach,
On
happiness
brand.
plan. Huh?
On brand.
Yeah, we got the brand, right? So that's what happened. And then they went off and did their happiness activities, or happiness habits. You develop some certain habits to that. And it worked. It was an experiment that paid off.
So clearly something good of that came on the other side, and it gave you some, with time to think about it, gave you some much needed perspective on how you could pay forward the things you already wanted to pay forward. But going back to that moment where the plane's sinking, you know, you're this really successful guy, you've been a go-getter your whole life, on the move, someone who tries to take control of situations, and I mean that in a good way. And yet you're on a plane as it's sinking to the ground and you're completely out of control and it all might be ending. What is that? What is, like, did you resign yourself to that, or what were the thoughts going through your head?
You know, it's really weird. We're diving to the ground, total silence, no engines, no screaming. Nobody seemed to be screaming. I think everybody said, there's nothing we can do about it. They were completely resigned. I mean, you're diving to the ground, okay? We're driving very steeply. And, you know, you see the houses down below, because it was like at evening time. You saw the lights of the things. And then you thought, there's nothing you can do. And I just said, oh, crap, I'm going to miss my meeting, because I was going to go to a meeting. I said, oh, crap, I'm going to meet it. Well, this is the end. And there was nothing actually went on in my mind because there was nothing going on in the plane. There was nothing there, and there was nothing to even think about. You know, people think their life is going to flash for them, or they were going to think of this or think of that. There was no time to think about that. We were going down to the ground, and we were going to plunge into those houses right below us. And then we didn't. It was a miracle. But shall I tell you, or shall I make people read the book?
You can do whatever. It's your show. You can do whatever you want.
It's your show.
I think people are gonna get the book anyway because there's a lot in here. Like that's one little story. Like looking through, I got to read this myself, but looking through the table of contents and everything, and like basically like the system that you're giving out from someone who's actually done it. I mean, that's the other thing. Like you've lived it and done it over and over again. I think a lot of people can get a ton of value from that for sure.
Yeah. So.
You want to tell it?
What I found out later is that the engine had blown up. That's what had happened. The engine had blown up. Blown up. Dead, gone. They called it a catastrophic failure. The engine had blown up. And what the pilot had done intentionally was dive to the ground to get airspeed so he could then level out and glide over the homes. So he got right above the houses and then made a sharp turn and was gliding above the houses without engines, nothing. So he's gliding right across the rooftops. Must have scared the crap out of the people in the homes. But he's right flying over the top there. And then suddenly we heard this whirring sound of an engine coming on. So what they'd done is to gain the airspeed, and then they were igniting the last remaining engine. It had one engine, was able to fly around and round and round, get altitude, and so we went back to the airport.
Whoa, that's a great pilot.
I tell you what, when we got off the plane, you know, he came up the front there and said, "Thank you for flying Delta. Thank you for flying Delta." I said, "Captain, thank you for saving our lives."
I'm flying private for the rest of my life. I'm leaving you peasants. Wow. That's great. You lived the real life Denzel from Flight, except it didn't go upside down. You just found a way to...
It did it, yeah. The pilot, you're right. That pilot was a hero. It was amazing.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
So, and how many years ago was that again?
About 10 years ago.
All right, so not that long ago either.
No, not too far. And I did this experiment like about 2020, and it took me a year or two, and then it took me 3 years to write the book about it.
What was that? Were you writing this? Did you have this outlined ahead of time, or was it one of those things you just started writing?
I had no intention of writing the book. No intention. I mean, it didn't even occur to me. I'm sitting down with some people that are telling me about what the grant made to them, what they had done with the money, and so on. They said, "Carl, you've got to write a book." I said, "Yeah." And they said, "No, really, you ought to write a book." I said, Yeah. So I wrote the book. And I'm glad I did write the book, because what I would really like to do seriously, I think people that have something, possessions, money, wisdom, or whatever, it doesn't have to be about money. There's no need to wait. You can do it now. Sit down with these people and give them a PreQuest. Now, when I started doing this, I thought, what's a PreQuest? So I looked in the dictionary, not in the dictionary. So Google knows everything, right? So I looked on Google. I said PreQuest. It said it's a rock group. So they didn't have PreQuest. It's not in Google. So this idea of the bequest, which you bring forward and make into a PreQuest, like you give them the bequest to the people now. So I was flying blind, so to speak, after the airplane, really flying blind. And so I had to figure out how to do it. And there's a process that you do it. You don't just dump the money on people. I didn't do that. I was very thoughtful about it. I sat down with them. I told them why I was doing it. I told them, here's the plan. I want to get this thing so that it doesn't hurt you, that you make the highest and best use of this money. And I want you to use it for your own happiness. I want you to give it away to whomever. I don't want you to give it to charity. Nothing wrong with charity. It's fine, and do that by all means if you want to. But this is for you, because what you've done for me, I want to do for you.
You look at the prime example of like people who get into found money or something, right? Like think of the lottery winners and all the horror stories you hear about people when they're brought into money that like wasn't theirs or was given to them or something. Money is a tough thing, as we were talking about earlier, to put between people. So to be able to do that at the scale you seem to have done it with a bunch of different people in your life, friends, family, and do it in a strategic way where it appears to me, based on what you're saying, it didn't create any resentment, and most people used it for good, so much so that you wrote a book about it. That's pretty remarkable, because that is, I would like this to be the rule, but that is really the exception to the rule when you look at that subject matter.
You know, you're right, and that's why I would like this book. I'd like this book to be selling. I'm mostly not in it for the money, although that's fine. But the idea, I want to get the idea into the world of not waiting. If you've got the money, the possessions, and it can be monetary, it can be a collection, it can be something that you're not using. Don't put it, well, do put it in the will, but you can also, no need to wait. You can do it now. Whatever it is. It could be artwork or a home that you're not using. Gift it now, not when you're dead. And enjoy it. And the thing is, do you think this made me a little happier?
Actually writing it out? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
I experienced that. My friendships are really wonderful. I got at least 20 really good friends there.
That's awesome. Yeah, and this is like cathartic to do it too, in a way.
Oh,
you're
yeah,
like,
it clarifies it for me.
Yeah, you really get to look back on it.
Yeah.
Do you think that there's such thing as people being born winners or losers, or do you think we all have the ability?
We all have the ability. There's no such thing as a born loser or that. What you need to do is go back to thinking and planning. Reading, thinking, and planning. Read books, talk to people, do the thinking work, and do the planning. And that's one of the things about this book. This book is not just about theory. There's a workbook, a work plan in the back of the book, so you can go step by step to increase your own happiness. So this is not just for people who have money. It's for anybody that wants to increase their happiness. There's a step-by-step plan in the book.
All right, so everyone's gonna have to go check that out. We'll have the link in description.
Yeah,
I got one last thing to ask you today before we gotta get you over to Soho House. You right now, a lot of what you've looked at in your life is this relationship philosophically between the private sector and the government, and entrepreneurs being able to go earn what they can to create jobs and stuff like that, versus some of the, I guess, like check to the balance that goes too far sometimes with government. And we've talked about it today. And right now we have an interesting tete-a-tete going back and forth where we have a guy running the country in Trump who came from the business world and understands that. Naturally still has to play the political process when you're running for the highest office in the land. So that includes people coming around, funding him. And in this last cycle, he developed a very close relationship with Elon Musk, who's the richest guy in the country from the private sector that also happens to do government contracts and stuff like that. And we see the two of them fighting it out in public, which I don't really think is good for anyone. But do you think that there's a part of it where one, how do I want to say this? You want the free market to exist, you want capitalism to run the system, but one has to have the other, meaning you do still have to have a check to the balance with the government. It just can't get too big. And so when you see someone like Elon come in who maybe wanted to actually have control and get whatever he wanted, to have someone like Trump being like, hey, no, you actually can't do this, this, or that, might actually be a positive part of the system working. Does that make sense?
I think we're observing the system not really working. I think it's malfunctioning. I'm very sad to see the breakup between Musk and Trump. Not really surprising. I thought it could go there, if you have to think about it. These are two big guys. And, Elon really wants, I think, the best for the country. He just wants to get rid of waste and so forth. And he's a businessman. He said there's too much going on here which is corrupt, too much here which is wasteful. It's not fair to the taxpayer to spend all this money. And I think Trump also knows that, but he also now knows what is politically possible. So his hands are tied. He can't tell Congress or the Senate or the House what to do. He can persuade them, but he can only get done what is possible to get done, not what he likes to get done. Elon would like to get these things done, but it's not politically possible. So I think he's going to start a new thing. But government definitely has a role. But the role should be get out of the freaking way. Let people do what they're going to do, honestly make a profit, honestly make a good product or service for those that their clients and their customers, and protect the good guys. Don't go after the good guys. Go after bad guys.
Right.
Support the good guys. And it's become corrupted and abused now, where the government, unfortunately, is attacking its own citizens illegitimately. And that's what is that? That's the weaponization of the government. Happened with the Department of Education. The Education Department is a disgrace. They've actually hurt education, not helped it at all.
How so? Like when you say that, what are the main?
Well, look at the scores.
issues?
Look at the scores in elementary schools. They've been declining ever since, for 50 years, since the Department of Education was started. Look at what the Department of Education has done to my schools. Look what they've done to ITT and a bunch of other good schools. Good schools teaching good programs. Were they perfect schools? Of course not. Is Harvard and Yale perfect? Of course they're not. None of them are perfect.
Right.
But they were decent at core. And they were good people doing the best they could to educate students. And they were closed down by the Department of Education, being manipulated by politicians. And that's when it becomes corrupt. And finally, what I would say, Julian, yes, there is a good role for government, and you need government. But they've got a limited role, support the good guys, and take care of the bad guys, protect us from the bad guys. That's their role.
Yeah, and you make what should be the obvious point to all of us that I completely agree with. Go after bad guys, don't go after good guys. And sometimes, we talk about where people could get some of this cynical feeling on society when you see things happen where good people get attacked. You look at that and you go, the system's not working. Or you look at something even like high level, like if you're just looking at elites versus Main Street, it's like you see a guy like Epstein and they're like, oh, no, he didn't. No, there was actually nothing there. And people know at home that that's bullshit. But the government tries to say, no, this is totally the case. And so people become disillusioned. And that leads to a lot of these attitudes that we were, dissecting earlier. But, I think it's great when guys like you can kind of lay out their plan on how they've done things and accomplished things and provide hope for people to be able to do that themselves. And so everyone should check out your book. We got that down below.
Way to go. Thanks for the plug, dude.
Appreciate
it.
Thanks so much for coming, Carl. It was great to talk with you.
Yeah, enjoyed it.
All right.
Take care.
You too. Everybody else, you know what it is. Give it a thought. Get back to me. Peace. Thank you guys for watching the episode. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and smash that like button on the video. They're both a huge, huge help. And if you would like to follow me on Instagram and X, those links are in my description below.